Jacob's scream shattered the morning calm. I dropped my coffee, rushing into the kitchen to find him on the floor, clutching his throat, his little face bright red and swollen. Emma stood frozen, a half-empty milk carton in her hand. "What happened?" I barked, already scooping Jacob into my arms. I don't know," she stammered. He started choking." We sped to the ER, my heart pounding the whole way. Emma kept muttering to herself, her hands shaking. Jacob's breathing had stabilized by the time we arrived, but the doctor's expression was grave. "We ran an allergy panel," she said, handing me a folder of results. "Your son has a rare condition, type 1 hypersensitivity to dairy proteins. It's extremely uncommon, almost always hereditary." Hereditary. That word hit me like a punch to the gut. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice tight. "Neither of us has this allergy." The doctor hesitated, then shrugged. "It might be worth exploring your family histories. These conditions can sometimes skip generations, but they don't appear out of nowhere." Emma stayed silent the entire drive home. I kept glancing at her, waiting for her to say something, anything, but she just stared out the window, her face pale. Once Jacob was settled and napping, I cornered her in the hallway. "What's going on, Emma?" I demanded. "Do you know something you're not telling me?" Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought I saw fear. But then she scowled, crossing her arms. "What are you even talking about? Why are you making this my fault? I'm not blaming you. I'm trying to figure out how Jacob could have a genetic condition neither of us carries." My voice was rising, but I didn't care. "Maybe it's from your side of the family," she snapped, pushing past me. "Why don't you go dig through your own skeletons before coming after mine?" Her words stung, but they also planted a seed of doubt. I knew my family tree inside out. My parents were obsessively thorough about documenting every branch. There was nothing like this allergy anywhere in our history. So why was Emma acting like I was the crazy one? That night, I found myself staring at Jacob's face as he slept. I traced the curve of his cheek, his tiny nose, the way his lips curled slightly in his sleep. He looked so much like Emma. Too much. The thought came out of nowhere, uninvited and unwelcome. But now that it was there, I couldn't shake it. And then I thought about Ryan, my stepbrother. Ryan had always been the golden child. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, athletic, magnetic. The kind of guy who walked into a room and owned it without even trying. Growing up, people constantly joked that he should have been the older brother. He and Emma had always gotten along, maybe too well. There were moments over the years when their laughter lingered a little too long, when their hugs seemed a little too close. I'd brushed it off as my own insecurities. Until now. The next day, Ryan showed up unannounced. He strolled in with his usual swagger, carrying a bag of toys for Jacob and flashing his perfect smile. "Thought I'd stop by and see my favorite nephew," he said, ruffling Jacob's hair. Emma lit up when she saw him, her demeanor shifting instantly. She laughed at every dumb joke he made, her eyes practically glowing as they talked. It made my stomach turn. At one point, Jacob asked Ryan to help him build a Lego set. As they sat on the floor, something struck me. Jacob's mannerisms, the way he tilted his head, even his laugh. They mirrored Ryan's in a way that sent a cold wave through me. That night, as Emma climbed into bed, I finally asked her directly, "Is there something going on between you and Ryan?" Her reaction was instant and vicious. She laughed. A cold, sharp sound that made my skin crawl. "Are you serious? This jealousy thing of yours is pathetic." "This isn't jealousy," I shot back. "It's about Jacob. The doctor said his allergy is genetic. I've gone through my family's history. There's no record of anything like this. So tell me, Emma, does it come from yours?" Her face hardened, and she threw back the covers, standing up. "You're unbelievable. Do you even hear yourself? You're accusing me of God knows what because of some medical report. You're obsessed with controlling everything, even things you can't understand." I stood, my voice low but firm. "I'm not letting this go. If you're hiding something, I'll find out." She glared at me, her jaw tight, then stormed out of the bedroom without another word. I heard the guest room door slam moments later. As I lay there in the dark, the doubts that had been eating at me turned into certainty. Something was wrong, and Emma was desperate to keep me from finding out what. But if she thought I was going to back down, she didn't know me at all. The next morning, Emma was back to her usual self, or at least her version of it. She breezed into the kitchen, pouring coffee like nothing had happened the night before. I watched her from across the room, my mind racing. She didn't look at me once, didn't acknowledge the storm brewing between us. It was like she thought ignoring the truth would make it go away. "Ryan called this morning," she said suddenly, her tone casual. "He wants to take Jacob out to the park later. Just some uncle-nephew time." Her words hit me like a slap. Ryan didn't call me. He didn't ask me if it was okay to take my son somewhere. He went straight to Emma, like I wasn't even part of the equation. My fists clenched under the table, but I forced myself to stay calm. "I'll come with them," I said, my voice carefully measured. Emma froze for half a second before recovering, flashing me a tight smile. "I'm sure Ryan can handle it. You don't have to helicopter Jacob everywhere." Her response only made my suspicion grow. "He's my son," I said firmly. "If Ryan wants to take him out, I'm coming too." She didn't argue, but the look she gave me was colder than the winter air outside. The park was crowded, kids laughing and parents chatting, while Jacob ran ahead toward the playground. Ryan strolled beside me, his usual easy charm on full display. He acted like nothing was wrong, but every time he looked at Jacob, I felt the tension coil tighter in my chest. It wasn't just pride in his eyes. It was something deeper, something more intimate, like he was looking at his own reflection. "So, how's work?" Ryan asked casually, breaking the silence. "Fine," I replied shortly, keeping my eyes on Jacob. He chuckled, clearly amused by my tone. "Relax, big bro. You're wound tighter than a drum." I stopped walking, turning to face him. "Why don't you tell me what's really going on, Ryan?" His smirk faltered for just a second, but he recovered quickly. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You and Emma," I said, keeping my voice low so Jacob wouldn't hear. "Don't play dumb. I've seen the way you look at her, the way she looks at you." Ryan's smile disappeared completely. He glanced toward the playground, making sure Jacob was out of earshot, then stepped closer. "Watch yourself," he said, his voice dropping. "You're walking a dangerous line." "Am I?" I shot back, refusing to back down. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've crossed every line there is." Before Ryan could respond, Emma appeared out of nowhere, her expression tight. "What's going on here?" she asked sharply, her eyes darting between us. "Why don't you ask Ryan?" I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "I'm sure he'd love to explain." Emma's jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought she might actually crack. But then she turned to Ryan, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Why don't you take Jacob for some ice cream? I'll handle this." Ryan hesitated, glancing at me, but eventually nodded and walked off toward the playground. Once he was out of earshot, Emma rounded on me. "What the hell are you doing?" she hissed. "Are you trying to ruin everything?" "Ruin what?" I demanded. "Why don't you spell it out for me, Emma? What exactly am I ruining here?" Her face went pale, but she recovered quickly, her usual defiance snapping back into place. "You're being ridiculous. This jealousy is getting out of hand." "Jealousy?" I laughed bitterly. "This isn't jealousy, Emma. This is me finally seeing things for what they are. Jacob's allergy doesn't make sense, your behavior doesn't make sense, and Ryan." My voice caught, the weight of my suspicion almost too much to bear. "Ryan doesn't act like an uncle. He acts like he has something to hide." Emma's eyes flashed with anger. "You're insane," she spat. "You've let some stupid idea fester in your head, and now you're blowing up our lives over nothing." "Then prove me wrong," I said, stepping closer. "Tell me I'm wrong, Emma. Swear to me that Jacob is my son." Her silence was deafening. That night, I couldn't stop replaying the scene in my head. The way Emma's face had twisted with panic, the way Ryan had refused to meet my eyes. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering on the brink of a truth I wasn't sure I could handle. And then, out of nowhere, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and froze. The message was from a number I didn't recognize. "I know what Emma's hiding. Call me." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. The sender had attached a name, Melissa. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it. Before I could think twice, I hit call. The line clicked, and a woman's voice came through, low and tense. I don't have much time to talk, but you need to know the truth. Emma's been lying to you for years. Jacob, he might not be yours. Her words were like a knife to the gut. Who are you? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. An old friend of Emma's, Melissa replied. We haven't spoken in years, but I know Ryan, and I know what they've been hiding. What do you mean? I demanded. How do you know? Melissa hesitated, then sighed. Because she told me, years ago. She swore me to secrecy, but after what I've heard about Jacob's condition, I can't stay quiet anymore. The line went dead before I could ask anything else. I stared at my phone, my head spinning. Everything was unraveling, and I wasn't sure I wanted to know how far the threads would go. But one thing was clear. I wasn't stopping until I had the truth. The message from Melissa sat in my mind like a burning coal. Emma's old friend, someone I barely remembered, had just dropped a bombshell and disappeared. It wasn't enough. I needed answers, something concrete, something that could crack this whole thing open. The next morning, I waited for Emma to leave the house before calling Melissa back. The line rang twice before she picked up. Her voice was tense, hurried, like she was afraid of being overheard. I can't talk long, she said. Emma doesn't know I'm reaching out, and if she finds out, she won't. I interrupted. Just tell me what you know. No games. Melissa hesitated, then took a deep breath. I used to be close with Emma, back when she and Ryan were, well, I guess seeing each other would be putting it lightly. She was obsessed with him. It was always about Ryan. His looks, his charm, how perfect their kids would be someday. She paused, her voice faltering. I knew she married you because Ryan wouldn't commit. He loved the attention, but he never wanted to settle down. So Emma picked the next best thing, you. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I kept my voice steady. Are you saying Jacob isn't mine? I'm saying there's a chance he's not, Melissa said quietly. She used to talk about how she and Ryan had moments, even after she got serious with you. I gripped the phone tighter. Why are you telling me this now? Because I saw the photos of Jacob on her social media, Melissa replied. He looks just like Ryan did when we were kids. And when you mentioned the allergy in your text, Ryan had the same thing growing up. Dairy just like Jacob. The room started spinning, but I forced myself to focus. Can you prove it? Do you have anything I can use to confirm this? Melissa hesitated again. Emma doesn't delete anything. She keeps photos, texts, emails, everything. She's always been paranoid about losing leverage over people. If she's hiding something, it's somewhere in your house. Before I could ask anything else, she hung up. That night, after Emma went to bed, I started searching. I knew her habits, how she kept old keepsakes tucked away in the back of the closet, how she loved organizing but never actually threw anything away. It didn't take long to find her stash. An old lockbox buried beneath a pile of winter coats. The lockbox was small but heavy, its surface scratched from years of use. It was locked, of course, but Emma wasn't as clever as she thought. Her password for everything was Jacob's birth date. The lock clicked open, and inside, I found exactly what I was hoping for and dreading. There were photos of her and Ryan together, some innocent, some not. A few were time-stamped just months before Jacob was born. My hands shook as I flipped through them. Then I found the texts printed out and folded neatly. Messages from Ryan, talking about their complicated relationship and how they needed to keep things quiet for the sake of appearances. One message stopped me cold. Are you sure it's his? What if the kid's mine? Emma's reply was scrawled in pen beneath the text, like she'd been trying to reassure herself. It doesn't matter. He'll never know. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the evidence. Part of me wanted to wake her up and confront her right then and there, but I knew that wouldn't get me the answers I needed. Not yet. The next day, Emma was in full manipulation mode. She acted sweet, almost overly affectionate, as if she could sense the distance growing between us. When I mentioned wanting to take Jacob for a weekend trip, just the two of us, she bristled. I don't think that's a good idea, she said, her tone icy. He's been through a lot lately. He needs stability. Stability, I echoed, laughing bitterly. Coming from you, that's rich. She crossed her arms, glaring at me. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm tired of your games, I snapped. You've been hiding things from me for years, Emma. I'm not blind. Her expression shifted, her defiance faltering just slightly. You're paranoid, she said quietly, but her voice lacked its usual bite. You've always been paranoid. Then why don't you prove me wrong? I demanded. Let's get a paternity test. Settle this once and for all. Her reaction was immediate and explosive. How dare you? She shrieked. Do you have any idea what that would do to Jacob? To our family? You'd traumatize him over your stupid insecurities. This isn't about insecurities, I said, my voice rising to match hers. It's about the truth. If you have nothing to hide, then why are you so afraid? She stared at me, her chest heaving with anger, but she didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed her keys and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. Later that evening, Melissa called again. I told you she'd deny everything, she said. But there's one more thing you should know. What? I asked, gripping the phone like a lifeline. She always joked about having an emergency plan, Melissa said. If things ever got too messy, she'd threaten to take Jacob and disappear. She said you'd never see him again. My blood turned to ice. Emma wasn't just lying. She was dangerous, and if I didn't act fast, I could lose everything. Emma didn't come home that night. At first, I thought she'd just gone to cool off. But as the hours ticked by, unease crept into my chest. She wasn't answering her phone, and her location was off. A move so deliberate it made my stomach churn. I checked on Jacob, who was fast asleep, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around him. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Emma was planning something. Melissa's warning about her emergency plan echoed in my mind. If Emma thought for 1 second she could take Jacob away from me, she was dead wrong. Just as I was about to call the police, her car pulled into the driveway. Relief was short-lived. She walked in with a face that dared me to ask where she'd been. She looked defiant, triumphant even, like she'd already won a battle I didn't know we were fighting. Where were you? I asked, keeping my tone calm, measured. None of your business, she snapped, throwing her purse onto the counter. It is my business when you storm out and leave me wondering if you're coming back. I shot back. Emma rolled her eyes, her smile sharp and venomous. Don't flatter yourself. I wasn't running away. Not yet. Anyway, her words made my blood run cold. What's that supposed to mean? It means, she said, leaning against the counter, if you keep pushing this ridiculous narrative, I'll make sure Jacob and I leave this house for good. And trust me, you'll never find us. The threat hung in the air, sharp as broken glass. She was testing me, seeing how far she could push before I broke. But I wasn't going to let her win. Do you really think the courts will side with you? I said, stepping closer. You've lied to me for years, Emma. You've manipulated me, kept secrets, played games. But this isn't just about us anymore. It's about Jacob. And I'll fight you for him if I have to. Her smile faltered, just for a moment. But then she recovered. Fight me with what? She sneered. Your baseless accusations? Your paranoia? Face it, you're a nobody. Ryan and I... She stopped herself, but it was too late. You and Ryan what? I demanded, my voice rising. Emma's eyes narrowed, her bravado slipping just enough to reveal the cracks underneath. You think you're so clever, she said, her voice low and venomous. But you don't have proof. You have nothing. Her words should have rattled me, but instead, they fueled my resolve. She was right, I didn't have proof. Yet, but I would. The next day, I called Melissa and told her everything that had happened. She's threatening to take Jacob, I said, pacing the living room. I need something solid, something that will hold up in court. Melissa hesitated. There's one thing I haven't told you, she said finally. Emma used to brag about how careful she was, but one time, she slipped up. She said Ryan sent her emails, long, detailed ones, when they were still sneaking around behind your back. She always kept them hidden, but I don't think she ever deleted them. Emails? I repeated, my mind racing. She has an old laptop, Melissa said. She used to joke that it was her black box. If it's still in the house, you might find what you're looking for. I didn't waste any time. As soon as Emma left to run errands, I tore through the house, searching for the laptop. It wasn't in her usual hiding spots, but then I remembered the attic. I climbed up, the air thick with dust and stale heat, and started digging through boxes. At the bottom of an old storage bin, I found it. The laptop was ancient, covered in scratches and dust, but it still powered on. The password was predictable, Jacob's name and birth date again. My hands trembled as I opened her email. At first, it was nothing, old receipts, generic newsletters. But then I found the folder labeled Private. Inside were dozens of messages between her and Ryan, spanning months. One email stood out. The subject line read, "We need to talk about the baby." I clicked it open, my heart pounding. "Emma, I know you want this to go away, but I can't stop thinking about it. What if Jacob's mine? I can't just pretend it didn't happen. We need to figure this out." Her reply was attached. "Ryan, it's not your problem. He's Mark's as far as anyone is concerned. Don't ruin this for me." The words blurred as my rage boiled over. She'd known. She'd always known. And she'd chosen to lie to me, to let me believe Jacob was mine while keeping Ryan in the shadows. I copied everything, emails, photos, texts. This was more than enough to prove her deceit. That night, I confronted Emma. I waited until Jacob was asleep, then locked the bedroom door behind me. She was sitting on the bed, scrolling through her phone, but when she saw my expression, her smirk disappeared. "What's wrong now?" she asked, feigning innocence. I threw the laptop onto the bed. "Explain this." Her face drained of color as she recognized the screen. "You went through my things?" she hissed, her voice trembling with a mix of fury and fear. "You lied to me," I said, my voice low and steady. "You let me believe Jacob was mine. You manipulated me, used me, and now you think you can just take him away." Emma stood, her fists clenched. "You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't lie to me," I snapped. "I have the emails, Emma. I have everything." For the first time, she looked genuinely afraid. But then her expression hardened, her defiance flaring back to life. "So what?" she spat. "You think anyone will care? Jacob doesn't even know you're doubting him. If you drag this into court, you'll destroy him, not me." Her words cut deep, but I refused to back down. "You've already done enough damage," I said. "This isn't about you anymore. It's about Jacob. And I'll do whatever it takes to protect him. From you, from Ryan, from anyone who thinks they can play God with his life." Emma didn't respond. For the first time, she looked cornered, trapped. And I realized something. I wasn't just fighting for Jacob. I was fighting to expose the truth, no matter how ugly it got. Emma's confidence had always been her greatest weapon. She wielded it like a shield, deflecting accusations, spinning stories, and turning herself into the victim when it suited her. But as I watched her pacing the bedroom now, the laptop still open on the bed, that shield was cracking. "You think this changes anything?" she spat, though her voice wavered. "So what? You have some emails. You don't have proof Jacob isn't yours. Do you have any idea what the court will say when they find out you went through my personal things? You'll look like a lunatic." Her words were venomous, but I could see the panic creeping in. She wasn't sure if I'd actually go through with it, and that uncertainty was eating at her. "I'll take that risk," I said evenly. "I have enough here to make any judge question your credibility. And if I need more, I'll get it. A paternity test is just a court order away." Her head snapped up at that, and for the first time, real fear flashed in her eyes. "You wouldn't," she whispered. "Watch me," I replied. She sank onto the edge of the bed, burying her face in her hands. For a moment, I thought she might confess. But when she looked up, her expression was cold, calculated. "Fine," she said. "If you want to destroy our family, go ahead. But you'll regret it when Jacob hates you for tearing us apart." Her words stung, but I didn't let it show. "Jacob deserves the truth," I said. "And I'll make sure he knows I fought for him, no matter what." The next day, I contacted a lawyer. He was sharp, no nonsense, and didn't sugarcoat things. "If you're planning to pursue this in court, you need a solid case," he said, glancing through the emails I'd shown him. "The paternity test will be key. but these messages establish a pattern of deceit. It's a good start. What about custody? I asked. That depends, he said. If you can prove Emma's actions are harmful to Jacob's well-being, you'll have a strong chance. But be prepared, this could get ugly. Ugly was an understatement. That night, Emma escalated her tactics. She was waiting for me when I got home, her arms crossed and her expression tight. I spoke to a lawyer too, she said, her voice dripping with smugness. And let me tell you, they weren't impressed with your little crusade. Do you know how easy it is for a mother to win full custody? Especially when the father's being erratic and invasive. My jaw clenched, but I forced myself to stay calm. You can try to spin this however you want, Emma, but the truth has a way of coming out. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a low, threatening tone. You're playing a dangerous game, Mark. You might want to think about what you'll lose if you keep pushing. I stared her down, refusing to flinch. And you might want to think about what happens when the lies catch up to you. A few days later, Melissa called again. She'd been digging into old contacts, reaching out to people who might have seen or heard something back when Emma and Ryan were sneaking around. I found someone, she said, her voice tense with urgency. A friend of Ryan's. He's willing to talk. About what? I asked, my heart pounding. About the night Emma told Ryan she was pregnant, Melissa replied, and what he said about it. The meeting was arranged quickly. The man's name was Jake, a former coworker of Ryan's who clearly hadn't stayed close. He was rough around the edges but seemed honest, his discomfort obvious as he spoke. Look, I don't want to get in the middle of anything, Jake said, fidgeting with his coffee cup. But yeah, I remember that night. Ryan was freaking out. He said Emma was pregnant and that it might be his. Did he say why he thought that? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Jake nodded. Because they'd been, together. Around that time. He said Emma was insisting it wasn't his, but he didn't believe her. The confirmation hit me like a freight train. I'd suspected it for weeks, but hearing it from someone else made it real in a way that was hard to process. Would you testify to that in court? I asked. Jake hesitated, glancing at Melissa. I don't know, man. I've got my own life. I don't want to get dragged into a mess. Melissa leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. This isn't about you, Jake. It's about a little boy who deserves to know the truth. If you can help him, don't you think you should? Jake sighed, running a hand through his hair. I'll think about it, he muttered. That night, as I put Jacob to bed, I felt the weight of everything pressing down on me. He smiled up at me, so innocent, so unaware of the storm brewing around him. Dad? He asked, his voice sleepy. Yeah, buddy? Are we okay? His question caught me off guard. What do you mean? You and Mom are yelling a lot, he said, his small hands clutching his blanket. Are we okay? I swallowed hard, forcing myself to smile. We're going to be okay, Jacob. I promise. As I watched him drift off to sleep, I made a silent vow. No matter what the truth turned out to be, I would fight for him. He was my son in every way that mattered, and I wasn't going to let Emma or anyone else take him away from me. Emma must have sensed that I was closing in because her next move was pure chaos. 2 days after my meeting with Jake, I came home to find the house turned upside down. Drawers were emptied, photos were missing from the walls, and Emma's closet was half bare. Jacob was sitting on the living room floor, clutching his favorite stuffed animal, tears streaming down his face. His babysitter, the girl from next door, looked frantic. She came in, packed a bunch of stuff and said she was taking Jacob. The babysitter stammered. But he wouldn't go with her. He just kept saying he wanted to stay here with you. My stomach dropped. Emma was making her move. She'd threatened to take Jacob, but I hadn't expected it to happen this fast. She must have realized how close I was to exposing the truth and decided to cut her losses. I dropped to my knees in front of Jacob, wrapping him in a tight hug. It's okay, buddy, I whispered. I'm here. I've got you. I called my lawyer immediately, and his response was grim. This is bad, he said. If she's trying to establish custody first, she could argue that you're the unstable one, especially if she twists the story. She won't get away with this, I said through gritted teeth. We need to act fast, he continued. File for emergency custody. We can use the emails, the testimony from Melissa, and anything else you've got to prove she's not acting in Jacob's best interest. But you need to find her before she makes her move. The thought of Emma hiding Jacob away somewhere sent a chill down my spine. Couldn't let her win. I started calling everyone Emma might turn to. Friends, family, even old co-workers. Most of them claimed they hadn't heard from her. But one name kept popping up. Ryan. It made sense. If Emma was running, Ryan would be her first call. But he wasn't answering his phone, and his apartment was empty when I drove by. My frustration boiled over as I stood in his driveway, staring at the dark windows. Then my phone buzzed. It was Melissa. "She's not with Ryan," Melissa said before I could even ask. "At least not at his place. But I just got a text from a mutual friend. Emma's hiding out at her parents' cabin." "Where?" I demanded, already heading to my car. "It's about 2 hours out of town, in the woods. Secluded. She used to talk about how it was her escape plan if things ever got bad." I didn't wait to hear more. I thanked Melissa and hit the road, my mind racing. If Emma thought she could disappear with Jacob, she underestimated just how far I was willing to go. The cabin was exactly as Melissa described. Tucked away in the woods, surrounded by nothing but trees and silence. My heart pounded as I pulled up the gravel driveway. Emma's car was parked outside, but the cabin itself was dark. I knocked on the door, my fists hammering against the wood. "Emma, open up." No answer. I tried the handle, but it was locked. "Emma, I'm not leaving until you let me see Jacob," I shouted. Finally, the door creaked open, and there she stood, her face shadowed by the dim light inside. "You have no right to be here," she said coldly. "I have every right," I shot back. "He's my son, Emma, and I'm not letting you take him away from me." She stepped outside, closing the door behind her as if to block my view. "You're delusional," she hissed. "You're obsessed with controlling everything. This is why Jacob doesn't need you in his life. You're toxic." I laughed bitterly. "Toxic? Coming from you, that's rich. You've lied to me from the start. Emma, I have the emails, the photos, everything. Do you really think you can keep this up?" Her mask cracked for a moment, fear flashing in her eyes, but she quickly recovered. "You think anyone will care? I'm his mother. No court in the world is going to take him away from me." "You're right about one thing," I said, stepping closer. "The court will care because I'm going to show them exactly who you are. And when they see the lies, the manipulation, and the risk you've put Jacob in, you won't just lose custody. You'll lose everything." Emma's confidence wavered. She took a step back, her bravado slipping. "You don't have proof," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Try me," I said, holding her gaze. Before she could respond, a small voice called out from inside the cabin. "Dad." Emma froze, her hand gripping the doorframe like it was the only thing holding her upright. I pushed past her, stepping into the cabin. Jacob was standing in the living room, his eyes wide and tearful. "Dad, I want to go home." My heart broke at the sight of him. I crouched down, opening my arms, and he ran into them without hesitation. "You're coming home, buddy," I whispered, holding him tight. "I promise." Emma stood in the doorway, her face pale, her hands trembling. "You can't just take him," she said weakly. "You took him first," I shot back. "Now it's my turn to do what's right." I carried Jacob out of the cabin, ignoring Emma's protests. She didn't try to stop me, didn't follow us to the car. As I drove away, Jacob curled up in the back seat, clutching his stuffed animal. I realized this wasn't over. Emma wasn't the type to give up without a fight. But neither was I. The drive home was silent except for the hum of the engine and Jacob's soft sniffles in the back seat. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, my mind racing with what had just happened. Emma had crossed every line imaginable. She had threatened me, lied to me, and now she tried to take Jacob away. But this wasn't over, not by a long shot. When we got home, Jacob clung to me as I carried him inside. He wouldn't let go, even when I tried to set him down. His little voice trembled as he asked, "Mom's mad at you, isn't she?" I hugged him tightly, kissing the top of his head. "Don't worry about that, buddy," I said softly. "You're safe here. That's all that matters." Once Jacob was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone. The evidence I'd gathered so far was strong, but I needed something irrefutable, something that would shut Emma down completely. The paternity test was the key, but I couldn't do it without Emma's cooperation or a court order. That's when I got the idea. The next morning, I called my lawyer. "I need to fast-track the paternity test," I said. "Emma's already made her move, and I can't risk her trying again." "I was going to suggest the same," he replied. "But be prepared. She's going to fight this tooth and nail. We'll file the motion today." By noon, the paperwork was submitted. All I could do now was wait. 2 days later, Emma's retaliation came in full force. A process server showed up at my door with papers. She was suing for full custody. Her claims were as outrageous as they were infuriating. According to her, I was an unstable, controlling influence in Jacob's life. She accused me of being verbally abusive, of spying on her, even of trying to alienate Jacob from her. The audacity of it made my blood boil. But when I read the last line of the document, my stomach dropped. Plaintiff requests an emergency order for sole custody of the child, pending resolution of the case. "She's trying to take him away now," I said aloud, pacing the living room. "She's trying to make me look like the bad guy before I can prove anything." I called my lawyer again. "She's filed for emergency custody," I said. "I figured she would," he replied grimly. "But don't panic. We can counter this with the evidence we already have, plus the fact that she tried to remove Jacob from your home without cause. Stay calm, and let me handle it." That evening, Melissa came over. She looked uneasy, glancing around like she expected Emma to jump out of the shadows. "She's not here," I said, offering her a seat. "What's going on?" "I found something," she said, pulling out her phone. "An old friend of Ryan's reached out after I asked around. He sent me these." She handed me her phone, showing me a series of photos. The first was a picture of Ryan holding a baby. Not just any baby, Jacob. My Jacob. He looked younger, maybe only a few weeks old, and the way Ryan was looking at him, it was like he knew Jacob was his. My heart pounded as I swiped through the photos. There were more. Ryan with Emma, their heads close together, smiling like they didn't have a care in the world. A few were time-stamped for the week after Jacob was born. "Why would he have these?" I asked, my voice tight. Melissa hesitated. "Ryan always kept souvenirs of his conquests. He was arrogant like that. But Emma must have sent him the ones with Jacob, maybe to keep him close or to make him feel guilty. I don't know. This was it. This was the missing piece. If I could tie Ryan to Jacob in court, Emma's lies would unravel completely." The court hearing came faster than I expected. Emma arrived with her lawyer, dressed in a sharp suit, her demeanor calm and composed. But I knew her well enough to see the cracks. She was nervous. My lawyer presented our case first. He laid out the emails, the photos, and Melissa's testimony. He painted a clear picture of Emma's deceit and manipulation, emphasizing how her actions were not in Jacob's best interest. The judge listened carefully, nodding occasionally, but he kept his face unreadable. Then it was Emma's turn. She went straight for the jugular, claiming I was obsessed with proving Jacob wasn't mine because I couldn't handle the pressure of being a father. She called me controlling, paranoid, and even accused me of fabricating the evidence. Her lawyer leaned into the narrative, painting me as a man on the edge, desperate to hurt his wife out of spite. It was a masterclass in manipulation, but I didn't let it shake me. Finally, my lawyer made the request. "Your Honor, we're asking for a court-ordered paternity test. It's the only way to settle this dispute definitively." The judge turned to Emma. "Do you object to this request?" Emma stood, her face pale but defiant. "Yes, I do," she said firmly. "This test is unnecessary and cruel. Jacob is his son. He's always been his son." The judge frowned. "If that's true, Mrs. Harper, then you have nothing to fear. The test is a standard procedure in cases like this." Motion granted. Emma's mask cracked completely. She sat down hard, her hands trembling as she gripped the edge of the table. The results came back a week later. I was sitting in my lawyer's office when he handed me the envelope. My hands shook as I opened it, scanning the words until I found what I was looking for. Probability of paternity, 0%. I stared at the paper, a mix of rage and heartbreak washing over me. Jacob wasn't mine, at least not biologically. But in that moment, I realized it didn't matter. He was my son in every way that counted, and I wasn't going to let Emma or Ryan take him away from me. This changes everything, my lawyer said. We'll file for full custody immediately. I nodded, my resolve stronger than ever. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting Jacob from the lies that had surrounded him his entire life. And I wasn't going to stop until he was safe. The paternity results were the final nail in the coffin of Emma's lies. But I knew the fight wasn't over. Emma wouldn't back down easily, and Ryan's silence through all of this was suspicious. I couldn't help but wonder, was he really as uninvolved as he seemed? Or was he waiting in the shadows, ready to swoop in and claim Jacob the moment Emma failed? The first blow came the next day. My lawyer called, his tone grim. Emma's doubling down. She's filed a motion claiming you're unfit for custody, citing mental instability and emotional abuse. Abuse? I nearly shouted into the phone. That's insane. She's desperate, he replied. But this is a serious accusation. We need to prepare for anything. That evening, Melissa came over, her expression guarded. She had been instrumental in getting me this far, but even she looked shaken. Emma's not going to stop, she said. She's going to use every dirty trick she can think of. I'm ready for her, I said, though my stomach churned with uncertainty. She can throw whatever she wants at me. The truth is on my side. Melissa hesitated. There's one more thing you should know. Ryan's been asking questions. He reached out to some old friends, trying to figure out how much I've told you. My blood ran cold. Why would he do that unless he's planning something? That's what I'm worried about, Melissa admitted. Emma might be unraveling, but Ryan? He's calculated. If he decides to fight for Jacob, this could get even messier. 2 days later, I found out just how messy it could get. Emma showed up at my house unannounced, her expression stormy. I stepped outside, shutting the door behind me to keep Jacob from hearing. What are you doing here? I demanded. We need to talk, she snapped. You think you've won, don't you? You think that stupid test gives you the upper hand. It proves what I've known all along, I said coldly. You've been lying to me for years. Emma took a step closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. Maybe I have, but that doesn't change the fact that Jacob loves me. I'm his mother. You really think a judge is going to take him away from me? Her confidence was like a slap in the face, but I didn't let it show. You're right about one thing. Jacob does love you, but I'm not the one putting him through this. You are. Emma's facade cracked, just for a moment. I did what I had to do, she said, her voice trembling. Ryan didn't want anything to do with a kid. He walked away, and I was left to pick up the pieces. So I married you, Mark, because I thought you were safe. I thought you'd never question it. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Safe, I echoed. Is that all I was to you? A convenient cover for your mistakes. I didn't mean it like that, she started, but I cut her off. Save it, Emma, I said, my voice hard. This isn't about you anymore. It's about Jacob, and I'm going to make sure he's protected, no matter what it takes. The next court hearing was the most intense yet. Emma's lawyer threw everything at me. Allegations of controlling behavior, accusations of trying to alienate Jacob from his mother. They painted me as unstable, a man unfit to care for a child. But then it was our turn. My lawyer presented the paternity results, the emails, the photos, and Melissa's testimony. He outlined Emma's deceit, her attempts to manipulate the situation, and the potential harm her actions could have on Jacob. The judge's expression was unreadable, but I could see the wheels turning. Then, to everyone's surprise, Ryan was called to testify. I hadn't expected him to show up, let alone take the stand. He walked in with his usual swagger, his expression calm and composed. But when he started speaking, the mask slipped. Yes, I had a relationship with Emma, he admitted. And yes, there's a chance Jacob is my son. But I had no idea she was lying to Mark. I was told Jacob was his, and I stayed out of it because that's what Emma wanted. His words were damning, but his tone was detached, almost indifferent. He wasn't fighting for Jacob, he was covering his own tracks. My lawyer pressed him. Mr. Harper, if Jacob is your biological son, do you intend to pursue custody? Ryan hesitated, glancing at Emma. "No," he said finally. "I don't want to disrupt his life." It was a calculated move designed to make him look noble. But I wasn't fooled. Ryan didn't care about Jacob. He cared about keeping his hands clean. The judge adjourned the hearing, saying he needed time to review the evidence before making a decision. As we left the courtroom, Emma cornered me in the hallway. "This isn't over," she hissed. "I don't care what that judge says. Jacob belongs with me." I stared her down, my voice calm but firm. "Jacob belongs with the person who puts his needs first. And that's not you." Emma's eyes narrowed, but she didn't respond. Instead, she turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, more determined than ever to see this through. The fight wasn't over yet, but I could feel the tide turning. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting to Emma's moves. I was ahead of her, and I wasn't going to stop until Jacob was safe in my arms, where he belonged. The days leading up to the final court date were a whirlwind of preparation and tension. Emma had gone silent, which was more unnerving than her usual theatrics. I could feel the storm brewing. She wasn't done yet, and I had no doubt she was planning something. Melissa called the night before the hearing. "I've been digging deeper," she said, her voice low. "There's something you need to see." "What is it?" I asked, already on edge. "It's a voicemail," she replied. "One Emma left for Ryan after Jacob was born. A friend of mine recovered it from an old phone of his. I think it's the smoking gun you need." She sent me the file, and my heart raced as I pressed play. Emma's voice came through, shaky but unmistakable. "Ryan, I need you to stop calling me. I told you Jacob is Mark's. He's never going to know, and neither is anyone else. Just leave it alone." The weight of her deceit hit me all over again. This wasn't just a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was a calculated decision, designed to keep me in the dark. I forwarded the voicemail to my lawyer immediately. "This has to be enough," I said. "It's a game changer," he agreed. "But be ready. Emma won't go down without a fight." The courtroom was tense the next morning. Emma sat across from me, her posture rigid, her expression carefully neutral. Ryan was there too, leaning back in his chair like he didn't have a care in the world. But I noticed the way his eyes darted to Emma every few seconds, like he was waiting for her to crack. My lawyer started with the voicemail. He played it for the court, the room silent except for Emma's trembling voice. When it ended, the judge turned to Emma. "Mrs. Harper, do you have an explanation for this?" Emma's mask slipped. Her face flushed red, and she stumbled over her words. It's taken out of context," she said weakly. "I was scared, Your Honor. I didn't know what else to do." My lawyer didn't let up. "Scared of what?" he pressed. "Scared of being caught in a lie? Scared that the truth might come out?" Emma glared at him but didn't respond. Then Ryan was called to the stand again. This time he wasn't as composed. The voicemail had rattled him, and it showed. "Mr. Harper," my lawyer began, "did you know Emma was deceiving Mark about Jacob's paternity?" Ryan hesitated, glancing at Emma. "I suspected," he admitted finally, "but I didn't want to get involved. And yet you kept photos, emails, and messages that suggest otherwise." My lawyer continued, holding up the evidence we'd collected. "Why keep those if you wanted to stay uninvolved?" Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't think it would ever come to this." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Do you have any intention of pursuing custody of Jacob?" "No," Ryan said quickly. "I don't want to disrupt his life." It was a convenient answer, but it only reinforced the narrative we were building, that neither Emma nor Ryan had Jacob's best interests at heart. Finally, it was Emma's turn to testify. Her lawyer tried to paint her as a loving mother who had made mistakes out of fear, but my lawyer dismantled her arguments piece by piece. "Mrs. Harper," he said, "you've claimed that your actions were motivated by love for your son. But how do you reconcile that with the fact that you deliberately lied about his paternity, manipulated your husband, and attempted to take Jacob away from his home without justification?" Emma's composure cracked. "I did what I thought was best," she snapped. "Mark is a good father, but he's obsessive. He never would have let it go if he'd known the truth." "Isn't it true," my lawyer countered, "that you withheld the truth because it was convenient for you?" Because you didn't want to face the consequences of your actions. Emma didn't answer. Her silence was deafening. When the hearing ended, the judge called for a recess to deliberate. The room emptied slowly, the tension palpable. I stayed in my seat, my hands clenched into fists, my heart pounding. Melissa sat beside me, her presence a quiet reassurance. "You've done everything you can," she said softly. I nodded, but the weight of it all felt suffocating. My mind raced with what-ifs. What if the judge didn't believe me? What if Emma somehow managed to twist this in her favor? What if I lost Jacob? After what felt like an eternity, the judge returned. Everyone rose as he took his seat, the room falling into an anxious silence. "I've reviewed the evidence," he began, his voice steady but firm. "The paternity results, the communications between Mrs. Harper and Mr. Harper, and the testimony presented here today paint a troubling picture. It is clear that Mrs. Harper engaged in a pattern of deceit and manipulation that is not in the best interest of the child." Emma's face paled, and I saw her grip the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping her upright. The judge continued, "In light of this, I am granting Mr. Harper full custody of Jacob. Mrs. Harper will retain visitation rights, contingent upon her compliance with court-ordered counseling to address her behavior." The words hit me like a wave, a mixture of relief and disbelief. I had won. Jacob was safe. Emma's lawyer whispered something to her, but she didn't respond. She just sat there, staring straight ahead, her expression blank. Ryan shifted uncomfortably in his seat, clearly wanting to be anywhere but here. As I left the courtroom, Jacob's smiling face filled my thoughts. This wasn't the end. I knew Emma would still try to fight, and there would be challenges ahead. But for the first time in months, I felt a sense of hope. I was going to protect my son, no matter what. The gavel's echo still lingered as I stepped outside the courthouse, the crisp air biting at my skin. For months, my life had been a battlefield of lies, manipulation, and doubt. But now it was over. Jacob was mine. Not by blood, but by choice, by love, by the bond we'd built together through every bedtime story, scraped knee, and whispered, "I love you." Emma didn't speak to me as she left, her lawyer by her side. Ryan was already gone, slipping out the back as though he could outrun the mess he'd helped create. I didn't care. My focus was on Jacob, who was waiting for me at home, probably drawing spaceships at the kitchen table or playing with his favorite Lego set. Driving back, I thought about the road that had led here. I'd been betrayed by the woman I loved, my trust shattered in ways I never thought possible. But the truth was, Jacob had been my anchor through it all. He didn't care about genetics, courtrooms, or lies. He cared that I showed up every single day and that I was there when he needed me. When I walked through the door, Jacob ran to me, throwing his arms around my waist. "Dad, you're back," he said, his smile bright enough to banish any lingering shadows. "Yeah, buddy," I said, crouching down to hug him tight. "And I'm not going anywhere, I promise." That night, as I tucked him into bed, I thought about everything I'd learned. Life has a way of testing you, of forcing you to confront truths you'd rather ignore. But those trials show you who you are. They reveal what matters most. For me, it wasn't about winning or losing. It wasn't even about Emma or Ryan. It was about Jacob and making sure he knew, without a shred of doubt, that he was loved. To any man who finds himself in my shoes, here's what I'll say. DNA doesn't make a father. Showing up does. Fighting for your child does. Love isn't about blood. It's about the choices we make every day to be there, to guide them, to make them feel safe. Jacob may not have been mine by birth, but he's mine where it counts. And nothing, not lies, not betrayal, not even a broken heart, can ever take that away.
The champagne was too sweet. That was the first thing I remember. It clung to the back of my throat like syrup, but I swallowed it anyway. I was locked on my daughter as she swayed next to her new husband. Her smile could have powered a city block. And for one split second, I let myself believe I'd made it. That all the sleepless nights, the double shifts, the fights, the silent dinners, the therapy bills, the everything, it had all led here. To this. Then she leaned in. We were seated at the head table, like some kind of royal couple presiding over a kingdom we hadn't ruled in years. I could feel the sweat behind my ears, the scratch of the collar I hadn't worn since last Easter. And Denise, my wife of 26 years, mother of both our children, the woman who once wept in my arms while holding a positive pregnancy test, brushed a loose curl behind her ear, leaned slightly toward me, and whispered, "I'm done with you." Just like that. Not angry, not regretful, not even triumphant. Just finished. Like she was closing a browser tab. Like I was an old shirt she'd finally decided didn't fit right. And you know what I did? I smiled. I didn't say, "What?" I didn't grab her wrist or cause a scene, or let my fork clatter onto the table in melodramatic shock. I just turned my head slightly, raised my glass toward the chandelier, and murmured back, "Then watch this." And I stood. Everyone clapped. For me, they thought. The father of the bride. The sentimental old man who was about to wax poetic about love, growth, and letting go. That's what they expected. That's what Denise expected. But instead, I just cleared my throat, tapped my fork gently against the side of the glass, and began. To the couple, I said, voice steady, "To new beginnings." And that was it. No speech. No story about her first steps, no embarrassing tale from kindergarten. I didn't cry. I didn't choke up. I just looked at my daughter, our daughter, and nodded like everything was perfectly fine. Because that's what you do when your life cracks in half mid-toast. You smile, you nod, and you wait. Denise looked confused. For a second. She blinked once, the corners of her lips tightening like she was bracing for impact. But I gave her none. Just calm. Silence. And that silence? That was the loudest thing in the room. Because Denise knows me. She knows I'm not a screamer. I'm not the throw-a-glass kind of guy. No theatrics. Just slow, methodical inevitability. Like rust. Or cancer. So when I smiled, really smiled, and sat back down without another word, she didn't relax. No. She stiffened. Because deep down, she knew. She didn't know what, but she knew something was coming. The thing about people like Denise is they mistake silence for surrender. They think that if you don't fight back, you've already lost. What they never consider is that silence might be the space in which the trap gets built. And I've been building for a long time. From the outside, it probably looked like a lovely, brief toast. Understated. Classy. Even sweet. My daughter beamed. The photographer snapped a photo of me clinking glasses with the groom. The band started back up. Laughter returned to the room like nothing had happened. But Denise? Denise didn't laugh. She looked at me like she was trying to read the subtitle of a foreign film. Like the meaning was there, hidden just under the words, but it wasn't translating. She turned to her wine, took a sip. Her hand trembled just enough to make the stem clink against her ring. Still wearing it, I noticed. Interesting choice. I turned away, scanning the crowd. Not for anyone in particular. Just observing. Documenting, filing expressions into memory. I caught my sister giving me a curious look. I smiled back, warm and vague. This was the beginning of the end. But no one knew that yet. And that's exactly how I wanted it. It was the garage door opener that did it. Not a late-night call. Not lipstick on a collar. A garage door opener. One night, maybe 10 months ago, I got home early from a canceled meeting. Denise wasn't home. That part wasn't strange. She'd started volunteering more, as she put it. Always meetings. Always fundraisers. Always something noble. But what was strange was the fact that when I pressed the remote, the garage door didn't lift. It wasn't broken. It was disabled. From the inside. She had unplugged the opener. Now, maybe that's a coincidence. Maybe she didn't want it making noise. Maybe it was rattling the ceiling or freaking out the neighbor's cat. But I've been married to this woman for over 2 decades. I know her habits like I know my own reflection. She's the type who gets annoyed when my toast is too loud. No way she unplugged that thing on accident. No way. That night, I didn't ask where she'd been. I just watched. Listened. She walked in through the laundry room 20 minutes later, humming softly. Cheeks pink. Perfume still fresh. Not faded, fresh. Long night. I asked without looking up from my book. She yawned and said, "Ugh, the school board is a nightmare. I swear I'm going to fake a nervous breakdown to get out of that committee." And that was it. No further questions. No accusations. I didn't even blink. But I remembered the unplugged garage. And from that moment, the marriage changed. At least for me. I stopped being her husband. I became her archivist. I created a folder on my old personal laptop, one she never touched, because in her mind, anything over 3 years old is basically a brick. I named the folder Eau de Vertige. Her favorite perfume. French. Fancy. Hard to pronounce unless you've practiced. Which I had, once, when I used to surprise her with it for anniversaries. Ironic how that same name would hold every artifact of her slow-motion exit from my life. At first, the folder was nearly empty. A receipt here. A half-deleted calendar invite there. Harmless things. Shadows, really. But I saved them all. There's something liberating about knowing the game is rigged and choosing to play anyway. Not to win, but to witness. Every night, while she FaceTimed from the guest room, because I snored too much, I logged into our shared Amazon account. She never realized her devices were still linked to mine. A pack of luxury condoms. Not our brand. Not even close. She'd never liked those before. But I guess when you're playing dress-up with someone new, you adapt. Still, I said nothing. I started labeling her moods. Not out loud, just in my head. Post-visit guilt was when she made my favorite dinner unprompted. Pre-visit jittery was when she couldn't sit still during dinner, fingers tapping the stem of her wine glass. Midlife smirk was when she got defensive before I asked anything at all. I had pages of this. Patterns. Timestamps. Emotional weather reports. She thought I was checked out. In reality, I was more present than ever. There's something Denise always misunderstood about me. She thought my silence meant absence, that my politeness was passivity. What she never got was, I grew up with a father who could gut a man with a look and a mother who smiled through betrayals like they were bad weather. I learned silence. I made it a weapon. She was rehearsing a breakup she thought she'd control. She had no idea I was building a stage of my own. Brick by silent brick. And the worst part? I didn't feel rage. Not then. I didn't fantasize about screaming or slamming doors. I just felt this quiet, cavernous disappointment. Like finding out the magician's secret and realizing the trick wasn't even that good. But I kept collecting. A screenshot of her Uber ride, destination, downtown Marriott. Timestamp, 10:52 p.m. 2 Tuesdays in a row. A dry cleaner receipt for a silk blouse she never wore around me. A blurry photo from her iCloud backup. Her reflection in a mirror, holding her phone up to check her makeup. And behind her, a hotel bed. Not ours. Everything she gave me, I kept. Not in bitterness. In precision. I wasn't trying to fix our marriage. I was preparing the autopsy. She said it like she was offering me a Band-Aid for a gunshot wound. Maybe we should try therapy, Denise murmured over her turmeric tea one Sunday morning, not even looking up from her phone. Just, to reconnect. Reconnect. That word hung in the air like the smell of burnt toast, vague, bitter, and entirely avoidable. She said it while wearing leggings that weren't for me, with her hair done in a way she only used to bother with on date nights that, lately, didn't involve me. I nodded. Sure. Let's reconnect. And just like that, we were working on it. In the public eye, at least. To her friends, her sisters, our kids, Denise became the image of the devoted wife who wanted to heal what had drifted. I was the distant husband, the one who'd clearly grown cold over the years. Maybe even, whispers implied, had a midlife crisis brewing. It was almost funny. Almost. Dr. Heller's office was lined with tasteful books and fake plants. Neutral tones. A place designed for confessions with throw pillows. Denise came in strong, like she'd been preparing a monologue. We've been married 26 years, and I just think we've lost track of us, she began, with her best mix of vulnerability and strength. Heller nodded empathetically, like a priest at a funeral. And what do you think, Martin? I think I'm listening, I said. That was the first session. The second session, she brought up how I worked too much, how I wasn't emotionally available, how sometimes she felt like we were roommates. She teared up at the right moments, dabbed her eyes with a tissue like she'd rehearsed the scene. Never once did she mention sneaking in at 2:15 a.m. reeking of Moscato and someone else's cologne. Never mentioned the school board meetings that ran so late she had to Uber home. Never even acknowledged that I hadn't touched her in 3 months, and she hadn't cared. And I let her talk. It was a masterclass in passive deceit. She didn't lie, not exactly. She just constructed a version of herself that was believable to everyone in the room but me. And Dr. Heller? He ate it up. Thought we were making real progress. Progress toward what? A more elegant performance? She wanted to be seen trying. That was the point. She wanted to be able to say, at brunch, "Oh, we're in therapy now. Martin's finally opening up." She didn't want to fix anything. She just wanted the receipts. The illusion of effort. So I gave her what she wanted. I opened up. I talked about childhood fears, my father's coldness, my anxiety about retirement. She smiled and held my hand in the office, then pulled it away like it was toxic waste the moment we got in the car. She even posted a photo of us after one session, captioned, "Working on us. One step at a time, red heart." Likes, comments, applause from her online gallery. But I was learning. Every session became a study in contrast. Her masks grew thinner. She'd slip sometimes, call me Mark instead of Martin once, brushed off as a joke. Laughed too hard when Dr. Heller asked if we still had intimacy. "Not as much as we used to," she chirped, then looked away quickly. She never asked me how I was feeling after the sessions. Never checked in. Because she wasn't actually interested in what therapy brought up. She just wanted it recorded that she tried. And meanwhile, I sat there quietly collecting every detail, every contradiction, every practice smile. I noticed she always checked her phone before and after each session, but never during. I noticed she wore that same necklace every Tuesday. Tuesdays were her committee nights. That necklace wasn't for me. Bitterness was there, sure, but not the kind that poisons, the kind that focuses. It made me calm, dangerous kind of calm. She thought she was orchestrating a soft landing for herself. A gentle divorce with built-in sympathy and Instagram-friendly grief. A husband too numb to notice she was already halfway out the door. But what she never considered was that maybe I wasn't trying to hold on. Maybe I was just letting her walk far enough ahead, so I could study her trail. She had no idea I already had the name of the hotel, the night clerk, even the plate of the car she was sometimes picked up in. Therapy wasn't a lifeline. It was an alibi in the making. And me? I was the witness. The calm, smiling, patient witness who knew exactly when, where, and how to use the truth. Not yet. But soon. The irony is, Denise always said I didn't care enough about the details. She claimed I wasn't a planner. That I left the emotional labor to her birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas cards. So when I volunteered to help with the wedding reception, she barely reacted. She just looked up from her laptop, distracted, and said, "Oh, yeah, sure. That's great, Martin." That was 6 months before the wedding. 6 months before the toast. 6 months before I'd walk up to a microphone in front of 147 friends, relatives, and half-drunk coworkers, and detonate 26 years of carefully curated fiction with a slideshow and a smile. But that day, that quiet little moment when I offered to help out with the planning, that was the beginning of it. She didn't even ask what I wanted to help with. She just handed me the spreadsheet like it was a chore list. The venue was already booked. The caterer picked. But the guest list still needed finalizing. The music schedule was open. And the slideshow? "If you want to handle that," she'd said, waving vaguely toward her tablet, "be my guest. Just make sure it's not all baby pictures. She'll kill you." I smiled. "I'll keep it tasteful." And I did. For months. Publicly, I was the dream father of the bride. I offered to call vendors. I organized RSVPs into categories. Yes, no, late maybe, flaky uncle. I even helped set up the shared Dropbox for guests to upload photos for the memory montage. What Denise never noticed was that I created a second Dropbox, one only I had access to. She never asked why I bought a thumb drive in early January. She never noticed the Excel file I created under the file name budget_2024_v2.excelsex, which, when opened, was actually a meticulous timeline of her vanishing acts, her alibis, and their silent unraveling. And the slideshow? God, the slideshow was a work of art. I started with the classics: baby photos, messy birthday cakes, crooked teeth, dance recitals, high school graduation. I even threw in a shot of Denise and I on a family beach trip, arms around each other, pretending nothing was broken. But at around slide 46, the tone began to shift. Not drastically, just enough. A calendar screenshot, cropped tightly, just a highlighted date and a text bubble hovering. Same room as last time, smiley face. A blurry photo taken through a tinted window. Her car. A hotel valet stand. Timestamped. Annotated. A voice note file. Just a name, vertige_17.wave, but I knew what was in it. Her voice, breathy and laughing, saying something no wife should ever say unless her husband is in the room, and I wasn't. I timed everything perfectly. The plan was never to explode. Never to scream or cry or flip the head table. This was going to be surgical. Clean. Under the guise of sentiment, I'd perform a quiet execution of the truth. In front of everyone she'd ever lied to with a smile. And she helped me. She practically gift-wrapped the opportunity. She was too distracted to notice that I'd taken over more than half the reception logistics. That I was coordinating with the DJ. That I'd offered to run point with the AV team at the venue. She was too busy pretending to be the devoted mother of the bride to realize her own husband was setting the stage, not for reconciliation, but revelation. She'd post things like, "So grateful to be surrounded by love while planning our daughter's big day red heart," on Instagram while texting a man named Evan at 11:42 p.m. She had no clue the very event she was excited to show off would become her stage exit. And every time I sat down to edit that slideshow, clicking through hundreds of images, adjusting transitions, crossfading the audio, I felt something shift inside me. Not rage. Not pain. Precision. Because this wasn't revenge. This was truth in high definition. This was me reclaiming reality. One JPEG at a time. I ordered the final playlist carefully. Upbeat songs for the childhood years, softer tones for the college montage. Then silence. No music. Just her voice. And the room would listen. Months before the wedding, I was already building her curtain call. She just thought I was finally becoming a better husband. His name was Craig Bennett. Funny how names echo in a marriage. Sometimes like music. Sometimes like a warning siren. Craig was one of those names that changed frequencies over time. At first, he was a harmless blip, a coworker from Denise's old nonprofit days. Then, a recurring guest in her stories. Craig said the funniest thing today. Craig's wife is having surgery next month. Craig invited me to that fundraiser downtown. Wants me to bring you. But I told him you hate those things. And then, one day, Craig disappeared. No more mentions. No more photos. No more tag-ins or likes on her socials. She scrubbed him out like a wine stain. That was 18 months ago. But I remembered him. And more importantly, I remembered when she stopped mentioning him. Just a few weeks after I noticed the first unexplained charges on our joint card. Parking meters in parts of town she never went to. Dinner receipts for two, billed after midnight. A hotel bar tab she swore was a glitch. I'd asked her once, very casually, "You still talk to Craig?" She blinked. Smiled too quickly. "God, no. Haven't heard from him in forever. He moved to Denver or something." What? No reason. I had reason. Craig didn't move to Denver. And I confirmed that 2 months before the wedding, when I made a little call. I found his number the old-fashioned way. Dug through a box of receipts and old contact lists Denise had forgotten to shred when she purged her email. Turns out, people who reinvent themselves often forget how traceable they still are. He picked up on the third ring. Sounded older than I remembered. Tired, maybe. Or just wary. His voice had that reluctant recognition in it, like a man realizing a ghost from his past just walked into the room. "Hello. Craig. This is Martin Langley." Silence. Then, wow. Martin. Hey. That's unexpected. Yeah, I imagine. Another pause. I assume this isn't a friendly check-in. I smiled. No. But it's not a threat, either. I let that sit. I don't want anything from you. I'm not here to dredge up your mistakes. Or hers, for that matter. I'm calling because I need clarity. A long exhale on his end. He didn't deny it. Not even a flinch. "I'm listening," he said. "I don't care about what happened," I said. "Honestly, I already know more than I ever wanted to. I just want you to show up. That's it." "Show up where?" "Our daughter's wedding. You'll get a formal invite. It'll come through her side of the guest list. You won't be questioned. You won't be seated near us. I've already arranged that. I just want you present." He went quiet again. But it wasn't the kind of quiet people give when they're shocked. It was calculating. The kind that says, "What is this man really planning?" "I don't. Martin, I haven't spoken to her in over a year." "I know. I want her to see you and not know why you're there. That's all." He chuckled, but it wasn't the good kind. More like disbelief. "You're a cold one, man." "No, just done pretending." He didn't answer right away. I heard a pen clicking in the background, then the creak of what I imagined was a desk chair. "Will I be safe?" he asked finally. "Perfectly. Is this some public shaming thing?" I didn't answer directly. "She'll recognize you. That's all I need. I'm not asking for a scene. I'm not asking for anything beyond presence." Craig let out a breath. "All right. Send the details." And that was it. I hung up and went back to updating the table chart. Slid 1+1 out of row D and quietly slotted Craig Bennett in at table 9, with the college friends Denise hadn't seen in years. Far enough away that she wouldn't notice him right away. Close enough that she'd catch his face as the slideshow ended. I didn't even need him to say anything. Just to exist. Just to be a question mark she couldn't explain. Because guilt doesn't always come from proof. Sometimes, it crawls out of the spaces where your lies used to live. And Craig? He was a living, breathing gap in her narrative. One she thought she'd buried. She wouldn't know why he was there. Which made it perfect. It was my sister, Mary Ann, who dropped the match. Not intentionally. She's not that kind of person. Mary Ann's the type who still sends handwritten Christmas cards and texts me recipes she knows I'll never try. But she also sees everything. Always has. The kind of woman who notices when a fork's been moved half an inch on a table setting and starts asking, "So, what's the story there?" It was some retirement party for a guy Denise barely knew, someone from her old board of directors. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I showed up late after work, figuring I'd grab a drink, shake a few hands, smile through the awkwardness. Denise didn't see me at first. She was across the room, backlit by the string lights, deep in what looked like a very close conversation with a tall man in a navy blazer. Leaning in, laughing too softly. The kind of laugh that requires touching someone's forearm. Twice. I didn't interrupt. I just stood by the bar, sipping club soda, watching the way her body angled toward us like it had muscle memory. Later, after I made my rounds, I found Mary Ann by the dessert table, holding a plate of lemon bars and watching Denise from across the room with the kind of expression only a sister can wear, curious, slightly concerned, completely unfold. "Who's Denise chatting with over there?" she asked, not looking at me. "She's been practically glued to him since you got here." I shrugged. "Don't know. Friend from her board, probably." Mary Ann nodded slowly. Then, after a pause, she touches him like she's forgetting you're in the room. That was all she said. No judgment. No questions. Just an observation, wrapped in sisterly neutrality. I didn't react. Not on the outside. I took a lemon bar. Bit into it. Chewed. But in my head, that one sentence echoed like a church bell in a cathedral of rot. Because Denise thought she was subtle. She thought her lies lived neatly in the dark corners of our shared life, unseen and untraceable. But lies are like mold. You can bleach the surface all you want, but eventually they bloom through the paint. And now, someone else had seen it. Not a stranger. Not a coworker. Family. And the thing about family is, they don't forget. Denise never knew Mary Ann had noticed. She didn't see us talking. She didn't ask why I was suddenly watching her differently during the drive home, letting the silence stretch until she finally broke it with a fake yawn and a muttered, "Long night." I said. "Who was the guy in the blazer?" She blinked at the window. "Which one?" "The one with the big hands you were laughing with." "Oh, that's just Richard. He's on the donor board. Married, I think." "Why?" "No reason." That's what I always said. No reason. But the reasons were stacking. It's one thing to suspect. It's another to know. But it's something else entirely when others start seeing it. That's when the isolation begins, not yours, hers. Because now I had a witness. Not to the whole thing. Not to the hotel receipts or the voice notes or the Thursday night lies. But to something small. A whisper. A glance. A touch. And sometimes, that's enough to shift a narrative. After that night, I started noticing how Denise began to overcompensate around my family. Bringing Mary Ann little hostess gifts. Complimenting my brother's wife too eagerly. Telling stories that positioned me as the emotionally aloof husband she still adored. She was trying to restore the mask, but the cracks were visible now, and no amount of polish would cover them. At Thanksgiving, she wore a blouse I'd never seen before and a necklace I knew wasn't from me. At Christmas, she gave my sister a candle from a boutique only available near that hotel she never went to. When Marian unwrapped it, she smiled politely, then looked at me. Just briefly. No words. Just understanding. That's when it hit me. Denise wasn't just cheating on me anymore. She was cheating on the entire image we'd built. And people were starting to notice. But no one said anything out loud. They didn't need to. Because once the illusion starts to crumble, even the quiet becomes a form of betrayal. And I just kept collecting moments like that. Tiny slivers of rot. Quiet confirmations. Because in the end, Denise wasn't just lying to me. She was lying in front of everyone. And soon, they'd all know it. It showed up on a Tuesday afternoon while I was on hold with the bank. Some cousin, third or fourth, I think, technically on Denise's side, posted a carousel of photos from some charity gala I hadn't even known she attended. The caption was all the usual fluff. Grateful to be surrounded by amazing people doing amazing things for an amazing cause, sparkling heart, hashtag fundraiser vibes, hashtag good energy only. I almost scrolled past it. I had half a spreadsheet open, my earbuds in. The monotone voice of some poor rep reminding me that your call is very important to us. And then I saw her. Slide 4. There, nestled between some awkward group shot and a blurry pic of a dessert tray, was Denise, shoulders back, hair curled, in that emerald green dress she'd bought on sale for a women's leadership thing. It hugged her in a way that told me it wasn't chosen for leadership. She was laughing, mouth wide open, head tilted back. That dramatic, over-the-top laugh she saved for people she wanted to impress. Next to her was a man I'd never seen. Tall, expensive suit, that too-polished look that always made my skin itch. His hand hovered just above her waist, not touching, not quite. But the implication was there, bold and casual, familiarity. She wasn't looking at the camera. Neither was he. They were locked into each other, mid-laugh, like nothing else in the room existed. Like no one else mattered. It wasn't a posed shot. It wasn't rehearsed. That's what made it perfect. Because it was real. Real enough for me to pause the whole music, screenshot it, and quietly drop it into the folder named O Divertage. Slide 53. Labeled, Fundraiser, 3 weeks before wedding. I didn't comment. I didn't like the post. I didn't even click on it twice. I just closed Instagram and returned to my call. Sorry, sir. Could you confirm your routing number again? I gave it to her. Calmly. Efficiently. Meanwhile, that image was already filed, time-stamped, and backed up. Later that night, Denise walked into the kitchen like nothing had happened, heels clicking against the tile, still wearing the faint outline of that dress, now covered by an oversized cardigan. She poured a glass of wine, white, expensive, and leaned on the counter like she hadn't just been publicly documented in an embrace with a man who wasn't her husband. How was your day? She asked casual. Productive, I said. Yours? She shrugged. Busy. Tiring. We raised over 30 grand for the foundation, though. Not bad, right? That the same fundraiser you went to a few weeks ago? She blinked. Oh, no, different one. This one was more formal. I told you about it. She hadn't. I didn't correct her. Instead, I nodded, sipped my water, and watched her walk out of the room, phone already in her hand, thumb scrolling through messages she'd never show me. The thing about lies is, they only require energy if you challenge them. But if you let them flow, let them hang like damp laundry in the background, the liar gets sloppy. Comfortable. They forget which lie they told, which version of the truth they're performing. And all the while, I was building my collection. Not out of obsession, out of certainty. I didn't need an affair confession. I didn't need a private investigator or a dramatic confrontation. I had something better, documentation in plain sight. The kind of evidence that doesn't scream. It just accumulates. And that photo? That one careless, accidental photo, posted by someone Denise didn't even remember inviting. It became a pin on my timeline. A fixed point. People say the camera doesn't lie. But what they forget is how easily liars walk into the frame. The night before your daughter's wedding isn't supposed to feel like the last page of a book you didn't want to finish. The suite at the hotel was spacious, too spacious. 2 adjoining rooms. King beds. A skyline view of the city where we'd supposedly built our lives together. The hotel had thrown in a complimentary bottle of champagne, which sat untouched on the side table, sweating into the ice bucket. I poured myself a glass of water instead and watched as Denise sipped up a suitcase she swore she wasn't bringing. She didn't say she was sleeping in the other room. She didn't have to. She just placed her phone on the charger, turned its screen down, and walked out of the master like she was heading to the lobby for more towels. No kiss. No good night. No glance back. It was 10:57 p.m. I waited. I knew the pattern. At 11:03, I heard the soft thunk of the door at the end of the suite. The one that opened to the hallway. Not the one we came in together earlier. Not the one our daughter would knock on in the morning when she came for help with her dress. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. Some men still hold on to hope, even when their house is on fire. They go looking for buckets while the roof collapses. I wasn't one of them. Not anymore. Instead, I sat down at the small table by the window. My laptop already open. The folder already waiting. I scrolled through it without emotion, photos, screenshots, timestamps. Her voice messages. The hotel receipt from a month prior. The calendar invite she thought she deleted. Slide 74, the fundraiser photo. Slide 81, the cropped Uber receipt. Slide 89, her reflection in a mirror, eyes bright, neck marked faintly with something she never mentioned. It wasn't rage that kept me company. It was something heavier, denser. Finality. At 1:42 a.m., the door creaked open again. She was quieter coming in. Maybe she thought I'd be asleep. Maybe she didn't care. Her heels clicked once, then stopped. I didn't turn around. I kept my eyes on the skyline. The glass towers blinking back at me, each one full of people telling lies in real time. I heard her move into the bathroom. Water running. A cabinet door. Perfume. That same Vertage scent, sweet, floral, sharp at the end. It hung in the air like a mockery. She passed behind me, said nothing, and slipped into the other bedroom. The door didn't click shut, but she didn't close it all the way either. Just enough. She never asked where I'd been all evening. Never wondered why my suitcase remained untouched. Never noticed I hadn't changed out of my shirt. Never looked me in the eye. But the silence? That said more than any confrontation ever could. I sat there another 20 minutes, just listening. To the occasional honk outside. To the humming of the minibar fridge. To the dull ache inside my chest that wasn't quite heartbreak. It was older than that. More like mourning something I'd already buried. It hit me then. This wasn't my wife anymore. Whatever piece of Denise I'd once loved had been portioned out, diluted, performed into extinction. What was left was a woman wearing the shell of our marriage like a party costume, one she couldn't wait to throw on the floor the second she thought no one was watching. But I was. Quietly. Patiently. And now? It wasn't about catching her. That part was done. This was about clarity. About giving the truth a stage and letting it perform, just once, louder than all her lies combined. I closed the laptop at 2:09 a.m., got into bed, faced away from the door, and slept like a man who was finally finished pretending. Weddings are theater. Everyone knows their role, and the script is sacred. The bride glows. The groom beams. The parents hover with practiced smiles and misty eyes, radiating pride and nostalgia. And I played my part perfectly. That morning, I was up before anyone else. Ironed my shirt. Polished my shoes. I even steamed Denise's dress before she got back from the salon. She didn't thank me, just grunted as she passed by in a cloud of hairspray and lavender lotion, phone glued to her hand, thumb working overtime. I poured her a mimosa. She took it without a word. Our daughter, was a vision. She came into the suite around 8:30 a.m., face glowing, veil in hand, the kind of joy in her eyes that can only come from being so sure you found your forever. I hugged her like nothing in the world was wrong. Because for her, nothing was. At least not yet. By noon, the venue was alive. Flowers everywhere. Live string quartet warming up near the garden path. Waiters in white gloves circulating with tiny hors d'oeuvres. I checked the sound system. Reconfirmed the slideshow settings with the AV team. Smiled through small talk with Denise's relatives. Even the ones who once called me too quiet for her. I posed for photos. Arm around Denise. Hand on her back. The perfect husband. The photographer kept saying, "One more smile, guys. You're pros at this." If he only knew. Denise downed her second glass of champagne before the ceremony even started. I noticed the way her fingers trembled slightly when she adjusted her bracelet. The laugh she gave when the officiant made a joke about lasting love came half a beat too late. She was feeling it. Not guilt. Denise doesn't do guilt. But that animal instinct. That flicker in the back of the brain that says, something's off. Someone's watching. And I was. She kept glancing my way during the family photos. Not long enough to raise suspicion. Just brief flicks of the eyes, checking for signals. But I didn't give her any. I stood beside her like a man proud to be there. Like someone grateful. The ceremony went off without a hitch. Our daughter looked like she'd stepped out of a dream. Her vows were tear-soaked and raw. Her husband barely got through his without cracking. The kind of emotion I once believed in. After the ceremony, guests flooded the garden for cocktails. Denise clung to her flute like it was oxygen. Her laugh got louder. Her smile, too wide. She was putting on a show, but the edges were fraying. "Martin, you've been incredible through all of this," her sister whispered to me while patting my arm. "She's lucky to have you." "Thanks," I said, with a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. Because luck? That ran out a long time ago. Inside, the reception room shimmered with candlelight and carefully chosen centerpieces. I made a quiet round before guests entered. Checked the AV one last time. The projector was ready. Slideshow queued. Just behind the family table, silent and waiting. The DJ nodded at me. "We're good to go whenever you are, sir." "I'll let you know," I said. The meal was a blur. Speeches came and went. Maids of honor, best men, teary mothers. Denise drank her fourth glass of champagne during dessert. Laughed a little too hard at a joke she wasn't listening to. She leaned over once and whispered, "You're being so composed today." "I try," I said. "Big day." She watched me for a moment too long, trying to read me. But the thing about being married to a liar for long enough is you learn how to outblink them. I took my time. Let the silence breathe. Let the tension grow roots beneath the table. Because she didn't know. Didn't know Craig was sitting 2 tables behind her. Didn't know what was cued in that slideshow. Didn't know what came after the final toast. She just knew something wasn't right. And that's the worst kind of dread, the one that doesn't have a name yet. By the time the DJ called for the parents' toast, the room was buzzing. Glasses raised. Eyes turned to me. I stood slowly, steady as steel. Denise leaned in. Her breath warm. Her tone flat. "I'm done with you." I turned my head. Met her eyes. Smiled. "Then watch this." And I stepped toward the microphone. The clinking of silverware on crystal died down as I stood. One slow rise from my chair, deliberate and quiet, as if I were about to give the most ordinary father of the bride speech in the history of weddings. A few light cheers from the tables. Someone whistled. I think it was her Uncle Rob, already 3 whiskeys deep and always too loud. The microphone waited on its stand like a courtroom gavel. I adjusted my jacket, took a sip of water, looked at my daughter first. She was radiant, laughing at something the groom had just whispered in her ear, completely untouched by the wreckage that was quietly unfolding at the other end of the table. Denise leaned in, her voice perfectly calm, almost too calm. "I'm done with you," she said. For words. The same tone you'd use to return a library book. I turned to her slowly, met her eyes. Her lip twitched, just slightly. A flicker of satisfaction. She thought she'd won something. That this was the moment she'd finally slipped the leash. I lifted my glass, held it up in a toast. To that, I whispered back. "Then watch this." She blinked. Once. Still, she thought I was bluffing. She didn't follow as I stepped away from the head table and moved toward the mic. She just sat back, adjusted her napkin, and topped off her champagne. Still in control. Still the calm one. The room grew quiet. A polite hush settled in, guests turning their attention toward me. Some expected tears. Some expected humor. No one expected the truth. I smiled, just enough to make people lean in. "Good evening, everyone," I began. "I'll try to keep this brief, though you all know that's not one of my strengths." Laughter. Nervous, polite. Standard wedding fare. I've been thinking a lot about what a wedding means. Not just the ceremony, but the decision it represents. To stand beside someone in front of your entire world and say, "Yes, I choose you." Not just once, but over and over, For as long as both of you walk this earth. More nods. A few sentimental sighs. Cameras out. People expected nostalgia. A cute story about her first ballet recital. Maybe. A memory from college visits. But I didn't give them that. I've been married for 26 years, I continued, my voice steady, my hand loose at my side. And over time, you learn things. About marriage. About love. About truth. The room stilled. I let the pause stretch. I could feel Denise watching now. Champagne glass frozen midair. Something changing in her posture. A shift. A subtle recoil. She wasn't sure what I was doing, but she knew it wasn't part of the script. And if you're lucky, I said, you learn to see things as they are, not just how you wish they'd be. You start to notice patterns. Pauses. Things that don't quite add up. And when that happens, you have a choice. I turn my eyes directly to her. You can ignore it. Pretend. Play along. A murmur in the crowd now. People glancing between us. My daughter furrowing her brow. Or, I said, you can open your eyes and do something about it. I smiled again. Not a happy smile. A surgical one. Which brings me to a little surprise. For the newlyweds. And for Denise. I stepped aside and gave a quiet nod to the AV team. Behind me, the screen blinked to life. And Denise, still smiling, but no longer sure why, sat absolutely still, the flute in her hand trembling just slightly. She didn't know what was coming, but she knew something was. And the room held its collective breath. The music had just started to shift. The DJ was queuing up some corny Ed Sheeran ballad. Guests were rising from their chairs, champagne flutes raised mid-toast, ready for the first dance. And then the screen blinked. At first, it looked like a hiccup in the program. A flicker, like a cable came loose. The lights dimmed slightly, and the projector cast a pale glow across the dance floor. A baby photo appeared. Our daughter, 6 months old, gumming a stuffed giraffe. The crowd let out a soft, collective ah. Another photo. Her kindergarten graduation. The big yellow paper hat. Then one of her holding a trophy at a middle school track meet. Denise beside her, all proud and perfect in that picture-perfect mom smile. Then college move-in day. Then her engagement party. And then slide 47. The tone changed. A calendar screenshot. Just a cropped image, March 16th. Circled in pink. The event name, fundraiser with E. Then a hotel receipt. Marriott. Room 419. One night. 2 guests. $186.52. Timestamp. Same night. Then, a slow fade to an iPhone voice memo. File name, vertige_voice17.m4a. The screen went black, and Denise's voice came through the speakers. Soft. Laughing. Intimate. You taste like bourbon in trouble. Stop. I have to get back before he notices. That's when the crowd fell completely silent. Every single glass in midair froze. Forks hovered. Jaws tightened. Someone on her side of the family whispered, "What the hell? Denise?" She didn't move. She sat, spine stiff, eyes on the screen, her champagne glass still in her hand like it had fused there. Her smile was gone. I stepped back up to the microphone, cleared my throat gently. I wasn't planning to speak again, I said, voice calm as a librarian reading bedtime stories. But Denise leaned over a few minutes ago and told me she's done with me. Tonight, of all nights. I looked out across the crowd. But what she didn't realize is that this has been done for a long time. Gasps. A few sharp exhales. Someone muttered, "Oh my God." I've spent the past year watching a marriage dissolve in real time. Not through fights. Not through shouting. But through absences. Through little lies. Through long nights and short explanations. I turned toward her now. She was pale. Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to interrupt, but nothing came out. "This is what you wanted, right?" I said. "To be done? To be free? To control the story?" Silence. The DJ was frozen by the booth. The waitstaff all paused mid-motion. I turned back to the guests. "I won't take up much more of your time. This is still a wedding, after all. And I don't want to steal a moment from my daughter. She deserves joy. She deserves the truth." I paused. She deserves to know who her mother really is. A final photo flickered onto the screen. Slide 63. Denise. In a mirror selfie. A man behind her. Shirtless. Blurred, but visible. Hand on her hip. Time-stamped. The crowd erupted, not with noise, but with movement. I started. Someone in the back stood up. Denise's mother dropped her napkin. And Denise? Still silent. Still frozen. But her face said everything. Shame. Not regret. Not apology. Shame. I walked away from the mic. My job was done. The final slide came without fanfare. No transition. No sound cue. Just a soft flicker as one truth replaced another. It was Denise, unmistakably her, walking beside a man in a charcoal overcoat. Her hand tucked into his. Her face tilted up toward him, mid-laugh, head back, eyes crinkled, unguarded. Not a selfie. Not a hotel mirror. This was taken from a distance. Framed like a secret. Time-stamped. 2 weeks ago. Broad daylight. Downtown. Right after one of her so-called board meetings. A ripple of gasps went through the crowd. Genuine ones. Raw, involuntary sounds, the kind people make when the mask falls off and they see something that can't be unseen. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I walked up to the mic one last time and turned it off. Slowly. Deliberately. A small mechanical click that sounded louder than the music ever had. The slideshow ended. The screen went black. The truth, as they say, had been broadcast. Denise stood, her chair scraping loudly against the wood floor. She opened her mouth, arm half raised toward me, lips moving without words. No one turned to her. They were still looking at me. Or at the spot on the screen where the image had just vanished. Her sister sat back with wide eyes. Her father looked down at the tablecloth like it might offer an escape route. And my daughter, our daughter, was frozen, hand clutched around her new husband's forearm, her face pale, confused, quietly unraveling. I didn't look at Denise again. Not directly. Instead, I walked to the coat rack near the door. Picked up the navy blazer I'd hung there earlier that afternoon. Put it on slowly. Smoothed the sleeves. Buttoned the top button. Behind me, chairs were shifting. A few hushed voices. A single sob from somewhere in the back. She followed, of course. Martin. Her voice cracked. It was the first honest sound I'd heard from her in months. I turned only when I reached the threshold, faced the entire room, and said, as gently and cleanly as I could, I didn't come here to ruin a wedding. Beat. I came to end a lie. And I walked out. No slamming doors. No raised voice. No applause. Just the sound of my shoes against marble and the wind catching the tail of my jacket as I stepped into the quiet April evening. For once, I didn't look back. Because there was nothing worth looking back to. She wants Greg to walk her down the aisle. That sentence. That one sentence is what shattered 20 years of fatherhood like a cheap wine glass. We were sitting at the kitchen table, me in my weekend flannel, half listening, waiting for Monica to finish her grocery list so I could run out for eggs and windshield washer fluid. Instead, she folded her hands, looked at me like she was about to break up with a barista, and dropped that damn sentence with the emotional weight of a post-it note. Rachel wants Greg to walk her down the aisle. I didn't speak. My jaw didn't drop. I didn't shout. I blinked. Once. Twice. Like I'd just been slapped with a wet newspaper in a language I couldn't read. Greg. I said it like I just remembered a bad dream. The guy who's always just helping around? Monica didn't flinch. She feels close to him. Don't make this difficult. And just like that, she picked up her coffee like we were talking about whether to get rye or sourdough for the sandwiches. Let me paint the picture, just so you understand the flavor of this betrayal. I met Monica when Rachel was 7. Her dad? Vanished. No postcards, no court-ordered visits. Just poof. I was the guy who taught Rachel to ride a bike, stayed up all night helping her build a solar system diorama out of foam balls, and drove 6 hours to bail her out when her car battery died in the middle of a college snowstorm. I funded her degree, covered Monica's credit card debt more times than I can count. And yes, paid for every cent of this damn wedding. And now Greg, the family friend who always showed up a little too eager to help Monica with home repairs, who never looked me straight in the eye, he gets the honor? I stood up without a word. The chair scraped back slowly on the tile, making this long, awkward screech. Monica didn't even look up. I walked into the garage, closed the door, and sat in the silence for maybe 10 minutes. I wasn't sad. Not exactly. It was colder than that. You ever step out into a Midwestern winter morning so sharp it strips your lungs on the inhale? That's what I felt, internally frostbitten. And if you're reading this and you've ever raised someone else's kid, yeah, You felt that, didn't you? Before I go on, 98% of you who listen to stories like this haven't subscribed yet. And honestly, it means a lot to our small team. If this hit you in the gut the way it hit me in the kitchen that day, take 2 seconds and subscribe. It keeps us going. Back to that garage. I sat down in front of an old workbench. Tools hanging on pegboard. Cobwebs around the mower. But one thing stood out, a picture. Rachel, age 9, on my shoulders at the zoo. Her hands wrapped in my hair, that smile missing her 2 front teeth. I don't even remember the day we took it. But looking at it now, it felt like a relic from a history someone had just redacted. And Greg. The way Monica said his name with no shame, no hesitation, like I was the one causing drama just by reacting. That's when something snapped, not out of rage. No. Rage is messy. Rage burns out quick. This was something much, much colder. I didn't rage. I planned. Because if Monica thought I'd just write another check, shake Greg's hand, and smile for the photos like some neutered Hallmark husband, she forgot something very important. I don't make scenes. I make decisions. I didn't sleep that night, not because of heartbreak, but because my mind finally found traction. Pain turned into motion. Planning. Precision. By 3:12 a.m., I had opened the wedding spreadsheet Monica shared with me 6 months ago. Venue balance? Due Friday. Catering? Paid in full. Photographer? Final deposit sitting in our joint checking account. I transferred it quietly to a personal account Monica had no access to. I called the tuck shop and told them to cancel my fitting. Told them I wouldn't be attending. I didn't rage. I redlined my presence. Then I opened a drawer in the garage I hadn't touched in years. Inside, tucked behind a box of brittle Christmas lights and a rusted socket wrench, was a sticky note. A name and number in faded ink. Ed Dunning, Private Investigations. I used him once, years ago, to confirm that an employee at my construction firm was skimming material off job sites. Ed found the guy in 2 days. Photos, receipts, everything. I gave him a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue as a thank you. I dialed his number. He answered on the second ring like he'd been waiting for me since 2009. Alan, he said. Not a question. I want to know who Greg really is. A pause. Greg who? I gave him the full name. Gregory Nathan Brandt. Born in Ohio. Used to run a landscaping business, now seems to live off consulting. Never quite had a clear title at any job he claimed to work. He's my wife's longtime friend, I said. My stepdaughter wants him to walk her down the aisle. Something doesn't add up. I heard Ed's pen scratching. Okay. How far back do you want me to dig? All of it. You want criminal records, social, financial. Yes, I said. And if there's a hotel involved? I want to know which one, when, and what card paid for it. He gave a low chuckle. You're not playing around. I never do. The call ended. I turned off the garage light and stood there, in the dark, the cold creeping into my knees. I didn't feel righteous. I felt surgical. I wasn't going to confront Monica. I wasn't going to make this a soap opera with screaming matches and slam doors. No, I was going to dissect this rot with a scalpel. Quietly. Thoroughly. Irrefutably. The next morning, Monica greeted me with coffee and a chirpy voice like nothing had happened. Rachel's dress fitting went so well yesterday. She cried a little. I gave a tight smile. She's lucky to have you helping her. She beamed. Not a flicker of suspicion. That's the thing about liars. They assume silence means ignorance. Rachel texted me 2 hours later. Thanks for understanding. I know it's weird, but Greg's always been like a second dad to me. Second dad. That line hit harder than the first. Because no, Rachel didn't know the things I had done for her weren't just about love. They were about trying to give her a life better than the one she was born into. And Greg? Greg just showed up with barbecues and bad jokes. But now he was the one who'd get to escort her down the aisle. No, not without a little truth first. That night, I bought a locking fireproof box and put it in the back of my closet. Inside, I placed a copy of Rachel's first car title, registered under my name. College tuition receipts. Every Christmas card she ever gave me. And a fresh notepad. At the top of the first page I wrote, in all caps, "Who is Gregory Brandt?" Then I waited. Because revenge isn't loud. It waits until it has every piece in place. Ed's report arrived in a plain manila envelope on a Thursday morning, slipped between a Home Depot coupon flyer and a credit card offer. Monica was out running errands. her euphemism for overpriced lattes and curated Target hauls, so I had the house to myself. I locked the office door, drew the blinds, and opened it with the same calm hands I used to hold a nail gun. 10 pages. Photos. Financial records. Names, dates, hotel check-ins. And, the kicker, room service receipts signed M and G. 6 years ago, while Rachel was starting her freshman year and Monica was sobbing in my arms about empty nest syndrome, she was screwing Greg at the Oak Ridge Courtyard by Marriott. Room 218. June 14th. $311.48 charged to Monica's Chase Sapphire card, which, for the record, I paid off every month. It didn't end there. The affair flickered back on again a year later. Hotel in Cincinnati this time. And again 2 years after that. Overlapping with the month I drained a CD to cover Rachel's final semester when her scholarships fell short. Greg wasn't just a friend. He was the maintenance man in Monica's hidden life. No job history. No tax records in 5 years. Just a few bounced checks, a judgment for unpaid child support in another county, and a suspicious number of Venmo transactions labeled THX Red Heart for Monica. Greg was, quite literally, a parasite. I didn't yell. I didn't call her. I didn't throw a single goddamn thing. I printed 3 copies of the full report and slid them into a labeled accordion folder. Exhibit A, Gregory N. Brandt. Infidelity and financial documentation. Then I made an appointment with my attorney. Tessa Cole is not a warm woman. She's surgical, the kind who wears fitted suits, answers her own phone, and has eyes like a bloodhound in a murder trial. We met in a small downtown office I hadn't visited in years. "Are we doing divorce paperwork?" she asked, without a smile. "No, not yet," I said, "but I need asset separation options. And I need a trigger plan." Her brows lifted. "Trigger plan." I slid the file across the table. "If she does anything further, if she tries to pull any financial move, or if this wedding spins the way I think it will, I want protections in place. Preemptive." She flipped through the pages, skimmed the photos, and gave a short exhale that almost counted as a laugh. "You planning to drop this on her at the altar?" I shook my head. "No, not directly. I wanted to do damage without me saying a word." "Collateral damage?" "No," I said. "Surgical damage." Tessa nodded once and started writing. "We set up a revocable trust. I had already shifted large chunks of our joint assets into protected accounts, but this would finalize the transition. We revoked Monica's access to 3 of our shared credit cards, all without her noticing, just slow declines waiting to happen. Subtle, undeniable. I also added a clause in the wedding vendor agreements, newly reissued under my name alone. Every contract now had a condition. If I was removed from any official ceremony role without written agreement, service would be subject to immediate cancellation. Tessa added one more touch, a notarized statement revoking Monica's authority on any shared assets, citing marital dishonesty as cause. It wasn't enforceable in all courts, but it would look powerful in the right hands. I left the office that day with a hard copy of every signed document, folded inside an envelope with a blood-red sticker seal. It looked like something from a spy movie. Fitting. I drove home with the windows down. The spring air was sharp, clean. I watched kids toss a football in someone's yard. One of them shouted, "Dad, watch this." And I thought, he has no idea how lucky he is to just be dad without asterisks. Back home, Monica was in the kitchen making sangria, humming to some 2000s throwback on her phone. She looked up, cheerful as ever. "You've been quiet lately." I smiled. "Just a lot on my plate." She kissed my cheek, too distracted to see the envelope peeking out of my jacket. That night, I didn't sleep either. But not because I was anxious. Because I was ready. Her name was Jenna Wilkes. Early 30s. Efficient in that clipboard is my sword kind of way. The kind of wedding planner who could pivot from champagne shortage to bridal meltdown without smudging her lipstick. Monica adored her, said Jenna had taste, and understood Rachel's vision. I didn't care about any of that. I just cared that she followed rules. We met 3 days before the wedding at the venue, a vineyard with way too many antique bird cages hanging from trees. Jenna was organizing floral placements when I approached her from behind, envelope in hand. "Do you have a second?" I asked. She turned, startled, then relaxed into a practiced smile. Of course. Everything okay, Mr. Holbrook? Let's talk over there. I nodded toward the little side arbor, away from the crew and the curious stares of Monica's wine-sipping bridesmaids. Once we were out of earshot, I handed her the envelope, thick, sealed, marked with a small red circle drawn in Sharpie. What is this? She asked. Instructions. For if something changes during the ceremony. Changes. If Monica or Rachel tries to alter any part of the plan, readings, lineup, ceremony order, especially regarding who walks Rachel down the aisle, open that envelope. She blinked. Okay. That's oddly specific. I met her eyes. It won't be needed if everything goes as scheduled. But if anyone deviates, even slightly, you read what's inside and follow it. She hesitated, glancing down at the envelope like it might hiss at her. Can I ask what this is about? No, you can't. Her brows pulled in. I could see the conflict. But then she gave a short nod and slipped it into her leather-bound planner, right between the seating chart and her emergency stain removal pen. Understood. Thank you, I said. This is not a prank. It's not some last-minute drama. But you'll understand if the time comes. The air between us shifted. She suddenly looked like someone who had just realized they'd agreed to babysit a hand grenade. Back at the main hall, Monica was fluttering around directing table runners and pretending she wasn't allergic to hydrangeas. Rachel was trying on her second pair of backup heels. Neither of them noticed the envelope or the weight it carried. And Greg? Greg was there, too, walking around like he was best man and proud uncle rolled into one. He wore my shoes. I mean literally, my shoes. Monica must have pulled them from my closet for the fitting I canceled. I caught him laughing with one of the groomsmen about doing the right thing and how weddings make everyone emotional. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought I heard molars crack. But I didn't say anything. I didn't make a scene. I simply stood by the gift table, adjusted a card box that didn't need adjusting, and let the tension simmer under my skin. Because now there was a mechanism, a trigger, a fuse just waiting for a spark. The envelope was no longer in my hands. And that was exactly how I wanted it. The sun came up like it had no clue what was about to happen. Saturday, 72 degrees. Not a cloud in the sky. One of those postcard-perfect vineyard mornings where even the bees seemed choreographed. Guests arrived in waves, linen suits, pastel dresses, clutches, and sunglasses, their polite chatter floating over the manicured hedges like bubbles in overpriced champagne. The small chapel by the vines had been decked out in blush tones and white roses. Live string quartet. Custom programs with Rachel and Greg's initials in gold foil. Someone from Monica's Pilates class commented, "It's just so tasteful." Greg stood near the chapel doors, grinning like a politician during a ribbon cutting. He wore my tux. My custom, hand-tailored, charcoal gray tux I had bought 2 years ago for a black tie gala Monica bailed on last minute. I recognized the slight taper at the wrists, the signature of a Montreal shop that only took 3 appointments per day. He looked ridiculous in it, like a raccoon in a Rolex. But the guests didn't know that. They smiled, nodded, clinked glasses. A few whispered, "Isn't that her stepdad's tux?" but were quickly shushed by Monica's orbit of enablers. Rachel? She was glowing. I'll give her that. The kind of bridal radiance people spend thousands trying to fake in photos. Hair swept back, veil catching little flecks of sun, lips painted soft peach. She laughed as one of her friends adjusted the train. She posed. She cried, the good kind, the curated Instagram kind. And not once, did she ask, "Where's Alan?" Because I wasn't there. I wasn't in the pews. I wasn't in the groom's prep suite. I wasn't peeking from behind a tree to catch a glimpse like some sad Lifetime movie ex-husband. I was a ghost. A financial donor with no RSVP. And the weirdest part? They planned it that way. No mention in the program. No chair saved. No photo in the family through the years, slideshow playing in the reception hall. Just gone. Like 2 decades of bandaging knees, buying science fair poster boards, and fixing busted taillights never happened. Monica, meanwhile, was in full bloom. White cocktail dress. Diamond studs. Hair done professionally in that, I woke up flawless way that takes 3 hours. She floated between guests like she owned the vineyard, thanking people for coming, gushing over Rachel, cracking jokes about how Greg was part of the family from day one. I watched all this unfold from a distance. Literally, parked on the ridge above the vineyard, binoculars in my lap, a cold bottle of water sweating between my fingers. Not because I wanted to spy, I'd already made my move, but because I wanted to see the illusion they worked so hard to build. And oh, it was convincing. To the untrained eye, it looked like a dream wedding. No tension, no drama, no missing patriarch. Just smiles and violins and a man who had apparently earned the right to walk another man's daughter down the aisle while wearing his clothes. But for those paying close attention, there were cracks. A couple of my old friends from work had shown up, out of respect, even though they hadn't seen Rachel since her high school graduation. I'd funded the open bar, after all. They looked confused. I could tell. One of them leaned toward a cousin and whispered something. Another scanned the crowd for me. Then there was the planner. Jenna, clipboard clutched a little tighter than usual. Her eyes kept darting to Monica, then to the envelope tucked in the back sleeve of her planner. She hadn't opened it, but she hadn't forgotten it either. Greg cracked his knuckles 3 times in under 5 minutes. Rachel glanced at her phone, frowned, then locked the screen. Monica checked her watch, then her phone, then her wine. The illusion was holding for now, but it was fraying, because the man who built the stage wasn't on it, and the play was about to change. The first whisper didn't even try to hide. "Where's Alan?" It came from the second row, a woman in a sky blue shawl fanning herself with a program. "Didn't he raise her?" Another voice, hushed but sharp. "Didn't he pay for all this?" That's the moment it began, the slow unraveling. Like the faint sound of fabric tearing in the background of a symphony. Most didn't hear it yet, but the ones who did, they paused, looked around, eyes narrowed. Rachel froze mid-laugh. Someone had just complimented her shoes, and she was beaming when the second question drifted over. Her smile didn't vanish, it just stalled, like a loading screen stuck at 99%. She turned, scanning the chapel vestibule. A flicker of doubt, brief and tight across her brow. Monica noticed it. "Sweetheart," she said, gliding over in that way only women who've perfected charm as a weapon can. "Don't listen to gossip. Just nerves. It's your day." Rachel opened her mouth, like she wanted to say something, but stopped. Monica tucked a loose hair behind her ear, kissed her temple, and whispered something inaudible but pacifying. Greg hovered nearby, trying to act casual, but he kept shifting his weight like he was on a cracked sidewalk. He wiped his palms on his pant legs. Once, twice, a third time. Jenna, the planner, was pretending to arrange boutonnieres on a table, but her eyes were locked on Monica. Not the bride, not the guests. Monica. Then her hand slipped to her clipboard. She didn't open the envelope, but her fingers rested on it now, like it was humming. Rachel turned to Greg. "You okay?" Greg fumbled a smile. "Just hot. It's warm in here." It wasn't. The AC was blasting. Everyone else looked comfortable. Guests continued arriving, and the murmurs gained weight. A man I didn't recognize asked a staff member if the father of the bride would be making a toast. She shrugged. Another whispered to his wife, "Didn't Alan put her through college? Weird he's not here." A pattern was forming, one Monica had clearly not accounted for. Because here's the thing. You can erase a man from the program, the slideshow, the lineup, but you can't erase him from memory. And I hadn't been some absentee stepdad. I was at every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every ER visit for every broken toe and sprained ankle. I was known. People noticed the silence. They noticed that the seat beside Monica in the front row had no nameplate. They noticed Greg kept glancing at the chapel entrance, like he was expecting a last-minute showdown. They noticed Rachel's eyes keep drifting, not toward the altar, not toward her bridesmaids, but toward the back doors, like she was waiting for something she didn't even realize she'd been robbed of. And in that rising tension, the envelope began to take on weight. Jenna picked it up once, thumbed the red seal, put it back. Her eyes flicked toward the doors, then to Greg, then to Monica, who was now hunched over her phone again, typing fast, deleting, retyping. Her smile was gone. Her wine was untouched. And that's when the best man leaned to a groomsman and whispered, "She is married, right?" Like, Monica's still married to Alan. The groomsman's face went pale. The illusion was still holding, but only just. And Jenna? She had just moved the envelope to the front of her clipboard. The quartet began to play. Vivaldi's Spring, of all things. A song that chirps with optimism, full of hope and rebirth and other things Monica hasn't experienced unmedicated in years. Rachel, standing tall in her heels now, looped her arm around Greg's. He looked like he'd swallowed a handful of thumbtacks. His smile twitched with every camera flash. The crowd stood. Phones rose. This was the moment. And then Monica ruined it. She swept toward Jenna, clipboard and all, heels clacking like a threat. "Quick note," she whispered, loud enough to make Jenna blink. "We're switching the order a bit. Greg and Rachel will enter after the officiant gives the reading from Corinthians. Rachel wants to walk in on her own after a few lines." Jenna blinked. That wasn't disgust. It's what she wants. "Please. Make it happen." Jenna didn't nod. She didn't even speak. She simply reached for the envelope. Monica's eyes darted down. "What's that?" Jenna broke the seal, pulled out the document, read the first page, and froze. She didn't gasp. She didn't stammer. But her mouth parted slightly, like the oxygen in the chapel had turned to smoke. Her lips twitched once. Then again. Her hand began to tremble. The envelope slipped slightly between her fingers. "What is it?" Monica whispered, her tone now veering somewhere between panic and denial. Jenna didn't answer. She simply turned toward the officiant, heels clicking louder now, spine rigid like a soldier walking toward a court-martial. She whispered something too quiet to hear over the violins, and he nodded once. Then again. Then slowly, he closed his book. The music kept playing. The guests kept standing. But the people at the front of the chapel were no longer part of the ceremony. They were part of something else now. Something breaking. Jenna walked off the altar. Directly. No hesitation. Not backstage. Not into the wings. Straight down the middle aisle, clipboard clutched like a detonator, expression unreadable. Rachel frowned. Greg's arm tensed under hers. Monica moved, fast, following Jenna with a whisper hiss of chiffon. "What is that? What are you doing?" Jenna didn't turn around. She headed toward the vendor's row, the photographer, the caterer, the AV guy, and tapped each one on the shoulder. Quiet words exchanged. Nods. Concerned glances. A sound tech unplugged a speaker. A chef folded his apron. Rachel was now halfway down the aisle with Greg when the officiant stepped away from the podium. No one said anything, but every guest felt it, that shift in the air. Like a storm front rolling over an open field. Like someone had lit a match in a room full of gas and hadn't dropped it yet. Rachel turned to Greg. "What's happening?" Greg had no answer. His mouth opened, then closed again. Back near the bar, someone whispered, "What the hell is going on?" And in that silence, Jenna re-emerged, holding a second envelope. The one marked Exhibit A. She didn't speak. She walked straight up to Monica, whose smile had cracked wide open into a terrified rictus, and handed her the file. Monica opened it. She read the first line. And then, she dropped it. Like it burned. The crowd gasped. Greg turned white. Rachel screamed. In the illusional. The perfect wedding, the happy bride, the proud mother. Exploded. It happened in silence first. No screaming. No crashing glasses. Just movement. Quiet, efficient, terrifyingly deliberate. The violinist stopped playing. Not all at once, but one by one, like lights flicking off in a building. The cello player looked around, confused, then packed up her bow. The photographer lowered his camera, reached into his bag, began removing batteries. Then came the caterers. Plates half prepped, trays of stuffed mushrooms untouched. One by one, they folded napkins, turned off burners, wheeled carts toward the service exit. The scent of rosemary and lamb drifted with them like smoke from a fire that had already started. The officiant, a retired pastor with a Santa Claus beard and a slightly crooked collar, placed his book down softly, deliberately, then stepped away from the altar without a word. Rachel noticed it all at once. "What's going on?" she asked. Her voice cracked. No one answered. She turned to Monica, who stood off to the side clutching a second sheet Jenna had just handed her. A single printed page. Standard letter size. White. No flair. No seals. Just ink. Just truth. Monica's eyes moved left to right, fast at first, then slower still. Her lips formed silent syllables. Her hand trembled, then both hands. Her entire body sagged like scaffolding collapsing one beam at a time. Then came the gasp, not from her, but from someone in the third row. Because Monica didn't just drop the paper. She dropped herself. Straight down. Knees buckled, arms limp, like the weight of what she read had unplugged her from gravity. Her head hit the carpeted floor with a soft thud, barely audible, but final in that way only collapse can be. Rachel screamed. The kind of scream that makes everyone freeze. Not because they care about what's wrong, but because something is wrong, and no one knows what kind yet. Mom? Mom. Rachel rushed over, heels clicking frantically. She knelt beside her, shaking Monica's shoulders, sobbing now. Somebody help. Greg didn't move. He just stood there, 2 steps behind Rachel, still in Alan's tux, still trying to understand why the photographer had packed up without taking a single ceremony photo. His eyes darted from Monica to the planner to the fallen envelope beside her. He didn't reach down. He didn't dare. A guest stepped forward to help Rachel. Then another. Someone shouted, "Call an ambulance." But no one pulled a phone, because in that moment, all eyes were moving somewhere else, toward Jenna, the wedding planner, who stood off to the side, clipboard folded against her chest like a shield, lips pressed into a straight, white line. Calm, composed, like she'd rehearsed this. And still, not a single word was spoken from her mouth. She didn't need to say it. The file spoke for itself. Because even if you didn't see the details, didn't read the room numbers, the receipts, the notarized letter, you saw Monica fall, and you saw Rachel break. And you saw Greg stand there like a man who knew the lights had just come on in a room he wasn't supposed to be in. Someone, maybe a cousin, leaned forward and picked up the sheet Monica had dropped. Read it, blinked, and without a word, passed it to the woman beside him, who gasped, then handed it to someone else. Within 60 seconds, at least 12 people had read the opening lines of Alan's Revenge, and the panic spread like wildfire dressed in lace and floral arrangements. Someone knocked over a wine glass. A chair scraped back violently. A groomsman cursed under his breath. Rachel looked up through wet mascara and screamed again. Not a name. Not a question. Just pain. She looked around, confused, eyes scanning the room like she was waking up from a dream that had suddenly turned to glass in her hands. Still, Greg didn't move. Not to help Monica. Not to comfort Rachel. Not to run. He knew. He knew. And the guests? They knew too. Because weddings don't unravel like this. Not unless something fundamental has been lied about. And in the chaos, no one noticed a white Toyota Tacoma pull away from the ridge above the vineyard. Quiet. Steady. Gone. The envelope was never meant to scream. It was designed to whisper, then detonate. Inside was a simple 1-page directive, signed and notarized the night before. If this envelope is opened during the ceremony, it means I have been intentionally removed from my position as father of the bride. All contracts listed below are hereby revoked, effective immediately. Vendors are released from obligations and instructed to cancel services without refund. No explanation required. Alan Holbrook. Underneath that, in clean bullet points, were vendor names, contact codes, and cancellation clauses, each bearing Alan's signature. The photographer, the caterer, the florist, the quartet, everyone. And beside each entry was a date. Services paid in full by Alan Holbrook. No ambiguity. No Monica. The vendors hadn't left out of confusion or disorganization. They'd received explicit instructions. If Jenna Wilkes opens the envelope, walk out. Quietly. No drama. No questions. But that was only the fuse. The explosive payload came in the second folder, the one that hit Monica like a sledgehammer to the soul. It contained a professionally bound report, 27 pages long, with high-resolution photo evidence, itemized financial breakdowns, and a timeline of Monica's 6-year affair with Greg. It began with credit card transactions, hotel stays, restaurants she swore she only visited with the girls. Then came the Venmo transfers. Then the emails. Some with attachments. Room 218, Oak Ridge Marriott. Room 342, Hilton Garden Inn, Columbus. Same day Rachel had her junior recital, and Monica claimed to be working late. And then, a notarized statement. I, Alan Holbrook, having confirmed the infidelity of my wife Monica Holbrook through professionally gathered evidence, am revoking her access to all joint financial accounts, trusts, and assets under my control. This revocation includes any usage of my funds toward the wedding of Rachel Benson, for which I am the sole financial sponsor. All future transactions attempted by Monica Holbrook using shared funds shall be considered fraudulent and reported as such. Signed. Witnessed. Dated. There were also printed photographs, enclosed in a plastic sleeve, with copies earmarked for distribution if needed. Jenna hadn't handed those out. Not yet. But the fact they existed was enough. Because even the hint of truth in those pages was radioactive. By the time half the guests had passed it down the aisle like a cursed relic, whispers had turned to certainties. She was cheating. With him? During college? While Alan paid for it all? Jesus, was this whole wedding built on his money? Monica's been lying for years. Rachel sat on the floor, still clutching Monica's limp hand, as someone else stabbed her cheek with a napkin. Her lipstick had run. Her veil hung askew. Her eyes darted, reading lips, expressions, the vibrations of betrayal in a room that had once felt like a fairy tale. Greg finally moved. He took one step back, then another, then turned toward the side door like a man retreating from a battlefield he thought he owned. But it was too late. People had seen. People knew. There was no curtain to close now, no champagne to serve to wash the taste down. Because Alan hadn't just exposed Monica and Greg. He'd done something far more cutting. He'd let them build the stage. He'd let them rehearse the play. He'd even let them charge tickets to an audience full of friends. Then, right as the spotlight hit, he pulled the power and left them naked in the dark. Strategic checkmate. No yelling. No vengeance speech. Just truth, fully armed. From the ridge, the vineyard looked peaceful. Still, like nothing had happened. But even from that distance, Alan could see the ripples. Jenna was the first to leave. Clipboard gone, arms crossed, sunglasses on. She walked with the posture of someone who had done her job exactly right, even if it meant setting fire to someone else's fantasy. Then came the guests. Like ants from a cracked nest, they poured from the chapel in uneven clusters, some whispering, some silent, a few already on their phones. The buzz was spreading faster than champagne ever would have. He saw Greg slink out a side door, still in Alan's tux, shirt unbuttoned, face ghost white. Monica didn't appear. Neither did Rachel. Alan didn't wait to see if they would. He sat in the cab of his truck, key already in the ignition. Air conditioning off. Windows down. The breeze carried the scent of grapevines and roasted garlic. It would have been a beautiful day. He didn't smile. He didn't puff his chest or mutter something smug like, "That'll teach him." He just watched. Watched the cost of years. The slow bleed of dignity, trust, and love that he'd kept bottled for Rachel's sake spill out publicly in real time. Not because he wanted revenge, because some stories only end clean when the lies are stripped bare and the audience is still watching. His phone buzzed on the center console. "Rachel, why would you ruin my wedding?" He stared at the screen. No name, just the text. There was a time he would have answered, would have explained, would have pointed out the years, the sacrifices, the checks signed without question, the hugs when her bio dad didn't show, the driveway snow shoveled before sunrise so she'd never slip on her way to school. But those words wouldn't land now. Not with a girl still clinging to the fantasy her mother built. He let the message sit there a moment longer, glowing in the sunlight. Then, without fanfare, he deleted it. No reply. No read receipt. Just silence. He shifted the truck into drive. Gravel crunched beneath the tires as he pulled away from the hill. No rearview glances. No slow turns. Just a clean forward motion. Below, the chaos would take days to settle. Maybe longer. But Alan? Alan was done being a character in someone else's lie. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel like a ghost. He felt like a man who finally left the building before it burned.